Good morning, Matthew.
How are you this morning?
Uh, I'm a little tired. I'm not gonna lie.
A little tired.
Yeah, but it's good to be here.
Is it good to be here? I'm
Holy-
enjoying being
Yeah, no, it's good to
here.
be somewhere.
I guess. Yeah.
Existential, you know.
All right. I guess I could shut this music off that you can't hear. Right.
Right.
Right. We
I can
stop
hear it
that.
in my head.
Okay.
You know.
Can you?
I'm-
It's probably
I'm-
nothing like what's in your head. Trust me.
You don't know.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well. I guess it's good morning for you. It's somewhat of
Yes.
an afternoon for me.
Yeah.
Um.
Bit of a
So
late morning for me.
yeah. Yeah.
Later than normal.
You weren't up doing your CrossFit at 5:30.
No, no. Sunday's my day off, and then, but I was up till about 3:30 this morning herding cats. I was the
Oh,
designated driver for someone's birthday extravaganza last night.
nice. I mean, somebody's got to do it, right? That's how that
Yeah.
works.
Well, and after my experience last Sunday, I was like, I'm not drinking like that and like for a while because I lose time and I don't want to get the things done that I need to get done and uh, you know I'm hung over on a podcast that
Oh,
like
definitely don't want that.
yeah. So we all have choices to make.
Yes, we do. And today we are making choices about powers and duties of Congress. Some crazy stuff right there. So,
Very exciting.
so, so, it, so there's some interesting parts about this particular section. Let me see if I can get our view here
Let's do it.
and get us to where people can see what is going on. Is that what we're doing? Yeah, we're doing that one. All right. So we can see a little bit here. So section 5 is an interesting section because when you look at, I mean, the first three sections are kind of makes sense. You got your first one that establishes your two branches in the, or not your branches, sorry, your two bodies in the legislative branch, and then you say what those bodies are. House of Representatives, the Senate, and then then we, like last week, we talked about the elections. Powers and duties of Congress is really an interesting one because you have that in Section 5, but then Section 6, rights and disabilities of members. Then you have the legislative process. And then 8 gives you the powers of Congress, which 5 is the powers and duties of Congress, right?
Hmm.
So it's really interesting that you have one section that has the powers and duties, and then another one that's just the powers. And then you have the denied powers, and then, of course, powers denied to states. So it's like section 5 and 8 are kind of the same, but it's a little interesting of what 5 does. So what you have here is Section 5. The House shall be the judge of elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members, and a majority shall constitute a quorum to do business. A smaller number may adjourn from day to day and may be authorized to compel the attendance of absent members in such manner and under such penalties as each House may provide. So essentially, when you look at that, okay, so each House, the Senate and the House of Representatives, they're the judge of their own elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members, right?
Hmm.
So this is where we were talking about earlier last week about how the conservative Constitution puts information in here about the election, sort of what was it, like a little, it was the tribunal for elections, for dispute
Mm.
for disputing elections, and then they took that section out of Section 5. So they moved it under the Senate, or under the election. Sorry, not under the Senate, under the elections section, rather than it being under Section 5, which is really interesting. So they took this part about each house responsible for their own elections, and they moved it under 4, the elections, sort of the elections section. There's some, like, when you're looking at that from a perspective of, and I think that this has happened, and I was reading, so on the Constitution Center, the National Constitution Center website, each section they have an interpretation, right?
Hmm.
And then you go into that, and it gives you some information about things that have happened. Each house has the power to judge elections of its own members. After the Civil War, heated disputes seating senators from former Confederate states. But in the modern era, it comes into play when there's a challenge for a state declared winner of an election. And there's some really interesting things. Legislative recounts, for example, the House Task Force took months to review a 1984 election in Indiana's bloody 8th District. GOP members walked out of the chamber in protest when the Democrat was declared winner by 4 votes out of 233,000 cast. 4 votes he won by, which is insane.
Yeah.
And then in 74, Governor of New Hampshire was certified by 2 votes. So, I mean, these are those little insights to where you look at how this stuff all works together from a perspective of, did it make sense in that what the conservative Constitution, what they did as far as making a tribunal that will handle it, versus it having to go to possibly partisan floor.
Well, yeah, I think. I mean, it's nice to see that we've learned from our mistakes. I guess that we've been fighting over elections at least since 1865. And that we can handle it civilly and like adults at least.
Yeah, that's definitely happening when you have an elected member of Congress and getting them seated in a partisan house. Like, we're not having any problems with that nowadays.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and this is interesting. In the second half of this, Democrat John Durkin sought redress in the Senate. Having conducted its own recount, the Senate Rules Committee reported a resolution that would have seated Durkin. But the resolution died in the face of implacable Republican opposition. So essentially, the Senate Rules Committee said, "Hey, yeah, we're seating him," and then
and
because
then
of
the
partisanship
vote went to the full
floor,
floor.
and it died because it was a Republican floor. 7 months into the new Congress, the Senate declared the seat vacant, and sent it back to New Hampshire for a fresh election. So they waited 7 months into the.
Yeah, and for 7 months, the people in that
We're
district
not
weren't
represented.
represented.
Well,
Yeah,
that
all
is
over
that's
all
the
over
Senate.
partisan politics.
Yeah, that's the Senate. So the state wasn't represented.
Oh, the state wasn't represented. Even
Yes.
better.
Yeah, I mean, So, okay, and this is an important thing that I was reading about. While they can decide contested elections, they may not disqualify a duly elected person who meets constitutional qualifications. So, the House tried to do that when Adam Clayton Powell won re-election in a New York seat, and the Supreme Court held that the House of Congress may expel a member, but cannot exclude him for pre-election conduct.
Hmm.
So, and I don't know what
Well,
they mean by flamboyant, but we can all guess.
we make some inferences, draw some conclusions, perhaps.
He wore a very frilly neck piece. That's
I
what it
was
was.
thinking,
It was very an
what is that?
ascot.
Yeah, no. The type of shirt that has the
All
the
the
lace around
the
it.
lace and the
Yeah,
frills. Yeah, I
yeah.
don't remember.
Yeah.
I've heard about it, and I'm gonna get a little pop culture here. If you've ever watched Ghosts on Paramount, you ever seen Ghosts
No.
on CBS? Yeah, there's a guy in there from the Civil War era, and one of his things was he went to a local tailor to try to get a very frilly, like one of the best ones, and one of the other people that he was around stole it from him.
Ugh.
But I can't remember what it was called. But it was quite interesting, the fighting over a shirt. So
Yeah, and I thinking of fighting. And just reading what they put in the section 5. It's like they're expecting they're expecting the members of Congress to hold themselves to a higher standard, and they're saying police yourselves, take care of yourselves, and and move forward towards the greater good. That's what I hear in section 5. And I guess the problem, like in all seriousness, the problem I see with that, and with the things going on today, is that everything, like the the people that are being elected are not, in some ways, I guess, better than the average person, or um, rising above the worst parts of human nature, I suppose. When you have people in committees that are screaming back and forth at each other, and telling them, that their hair looks ratty, or their nails look, pressed on. I don't think that that's really, uh, indicative of giving somebody this set of rules and saying, "Hey, you guys figure it out. Like, you're grown ass adults, um, and you're supposed to be the best of us. So, um, you know, we believe in you to figure this out."
try not to resort to personal attacks on someone's the way they look or the way they dress or the way that they
Yeah.
carry themselves.
Or
Right.
or just break down into partisan politics. Like, when you like, if it comes down to 4 votes, man, you know that deserves a review, and that should probably be recounted probably 10 or 20 times. To be really honest with you, I'm thinking about it, to get an accurate, and then you somehow take an average of those 10 or 20 votes. Like, when to find out who won the election, or something to be agreed upon, not something that gets shut down on the Senate floor, because one House of Congress is run by one partisan party versus another. Like, it's like, I'm looking at Section 5 as a whole, and it's like, does this even work? Like, based on what we've seen over history and over time, and especially like what we're seeing in politics on a day-to-day basis, at least in like the past 15 years, I would say. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I'm trying to, like, and that makes this is a good case for the bipartisan tribunal that in the conservative constitution that they put together was creating that tribunal, so you don't have, like, if the House is one sided or the other, you don't have the problem of people, something going to a vote or something being part of, this, whether it's the House of 400 and some representatives or the Senate with 100. you don't have it to where you have that many people. Like you have a a quote unquote bipartisan tribunal that
Yeah.
is going to look at kind of look at the facts, and then this also goes back to the election process and trying to have a better process that is used for
Yeah.
electing. And we were talking about, you have your digital you have your digital count, and then you require a manual count to make sure that the digital count lines up with the trust but verify,
Yeah.
to make sure that you have, that if your digital count comes back and says, oh, well, this person, won by, 15,000 votes, and then you do a hand count and you're like, no, they won by 500 votes. Well, something's wrong. Like, and then that should kick off some other process that goes,
Tribunal.
yeah, well,
I
it
would
should
say.
kick off some other process that goes,
Yeah.
okay, well, what's wrong here? What's wrong with the digital count? Why is it doing this? And what's wrong with the paper count, or vice versa? Why are they not matching? And then that should, there should be some sort of research into that, and
Oh yeah.
that's going to solve a lot of this stuff going around about, oh, elections are stolen, this and that.
Hmm.
Having that extra verification. So,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things, I think, that the digital count should not be made public until after the hand count is done, too. Because if you have some sort of manipulation in the digital count,
Yeah.
you know,
That's an excellent point. Yeah. And I did the math on that vote. You're talking about like 0.0000, maybe one more zero in there. 1% of the vote that he won by. And it's like, and, and the idea and I guess it took 7 months, right?
no, no,
They,
no, no, no. This was 1984, the bloody eighth. He won by 4, and in
yeah,
1974, for governor of New Hampshire, won by 2 votes. Yeah, the John Durkin guy was, he was essentially, they didn't pass the resolution, and then they said the seat was empty and for 7
yeah,
months, and then they pushed it back after 7 months. After 7 months, they pushed it back to the state and said, hold another election. Like,
yeah. And,
what the
and the
hell?
idea that you can't have a rational conversation around that and say, look, like this deserves more review. Um, and and that it's taken you 7 months to figure out. And I get it, man. In 1974, it probably takes a long time to count 233,000 votes. Sure. Um, but the yeah, the idea that that's the way it went down because you know because of the rules of voting and Congress policing itself, and it's like I it's like fucking children. That's what I think off of the top of my head.
Yeah, I agree, and that's what a lot of this stuff stems from. It was 1974. That's when they had the that's when they had that runoff, I guess, for the governor of New Hampshire, and they pushed it back and they made him do another. That's interesting. Wait a second. No, 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 no. 1974. Sorry, 1974. Right here. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and it really does go like what you were pointing out. It really does go back to our overarching conversation of all of this so far. And it's like, how do we, how in general, how do we change things like, and we've talked about ranked choice voting, and we've talked about some other things like the tribunals
Yeah.
and different ideas. Like, how do we change what politics has become in the United States in this iteration and this day and age? But again, you've got this going back at least till from 1865. But I know, eh, I like off the top of my head, I can think of some heated heated debates and different things that happened. We talk about Aaron Burr shooting Alexander Hamilton over a duel, and I think a lot of that was over politics, and and I suppose and I guess how do you stop people from getting heated? How do you and letting cooler heads prevail, letting rationality prevail over the um, the the ideas or your, I guess, ideology, and your ego getting in the way of what's best for the country and what's best for the people that you're supposed to be serving. Because did any of this, did it serve the people? Did they get the representation that they wanted, that they voted for? Who the hell knows? You know.
So it's actually quite interesting. So I was looking at different voting options, and ranked choice voting is one of them. There's actually quite a few out there, but there's actually a movement to push star voting. I don't know if you've heard of star voting.
Well, I mean, I'm guessing it's something like like Yelp or Google reviews or something like that. Where I mean,
You're not wrong. You're not
yeah.
wrong. So, and it's interesting that we're still talking about elections. So the star voting is essentially where you rank your here's what it looks like. You essentially you rank, 5 being the person that you would choose. You can give however many stars to the other ones. You can vote for the same for two for 2 voters, and then the person you definitely don't want is 0. And it goes through 2 rounds of voting. It goes by score of total stars that the person has received, and then it goes to an automatic runoff. So essentially, the way that it works is let's see if we can
See,
find
and
a quick
right
video.
there, in and of itself. See, I would have voted way differently in the last presidential election if we had done that. Because if the 2 people, that if there were only 2 people on the ballot, the only 2 people there,
How
I
does
would have gave them both a 0, like, and been like, can we get a do over?
how does star voting work?
Did I?
Star
I couldn't hear you on the audio.
Sorry. No, I understand what you're saying, and I want to watch a quick little video here about how
How does star voting
star
work?
voting works.
Star
And
stands for
I don't know if you
score,
can hear it.
then automatic runoff. And that's exactly
No.
how it works. Just give your
But it makes sense to me.
favorite 5 stars.
You
give
should be
your
able to
least
watch this
favorite
and
0, and
Yeah.
score the others as you like.
Sorry.
With star, it's easy to show your preference order and also your level of support for each candidate. It's safe to vote your conscience, and you don't have to worry about voting for the lesser of 2 evils or wasting your vote. Now let's see how the ballots are counted. Here's the first
You
ballot.
don't haven't figured
This
out a way
voter
to
gave
pull
3
audio
stars
into the
to
screen
Abby,
for your YouTube
4 stars to
videos.
Ben.
Very upsetting.
what's the problem? Oh, you're talking about for Discord?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can only do so much.
0 stars to Carmen, and 5 stars to DeAndre. Here's the second ballot. Note that this voter gave Abby and DeAndre the same score, which is permitted in star voting. And that's exactly how it works.
I can hear your audio.
Let me turn it down.
That's all right. So, but essentially, the way it works is you have you take the voters and you vote what their stars are, right? So you have the 4 people. You have the people that got the most stars. So you're looking, say you voted for, say you voted for Carmen, you gave them 5, and then you gave 4 to Abby and 3 to Ben. So your first choice is Carmen, and then your second choice would be Abby, and then Ben, and then DeAndre would get none. So the stars, it goes and it pulls. Okay, well, who is the favored one? Who is the one that is the people that are most favored? And it takes essentially the top 2.
The 2 highest scoring candidates are finalists.
2 highest scoring candidates are finalists.
Remaining candidates are out of the running.
So then it goes to essentially an automatic runoff, and it takes everybody's votes from an automatic runoff standpoint.
Now it's time for the second round of tap.
So the stars don't necessarily, like the 5 stars doesn't really matter from a perspective of voting. Like once you give them the stars is just to get, okay, who's going to be in the runoff? Like, who are the 2 popular candidates that most people have voted for?
Tabulation,
So,
the automatic runoff.
Then you do the automatic
Each
runoff.
ballot counts as 1 vote for the finalist each voter preferred.
So each ballot counts. So you do. So this is the interesting part, and this is how you get the full representation of where it's like, oh well, my vote doesn't count. You're able to get around that by saying, okay, well, if your number 1 pick, the person you gave 5 stars, doesn't make it, your vote still counts on your second or your third or whatever one didn't make it. Like, you still have a vote and it still counts towards someone if the other 2 people that you had, or other 3 people, or however many people, if they didn't make it in, if you still had a vote for 0 for the opposition, and you had a 1 star for this other person because you prefer them over the other one, your vote is still counting because you got that 1 star and you still want that one in. So your vote still goes to that person. So you still have the ability to vote for one of the top 2 people.
Let's see how many people preferred Carmen over DeAndre, and vice versa. This voter preferred DeAndre
I like
to
it.
Carmen.
I mean,
so this vote goes to
and
DeAndre.
I feel like we definitely need something different
Than what we have.
to get people more involved.
Yeah. And if you have, and the thing is there's no preference. Like, say you voted for 2 people, either 5 or 4 or 3 or whatever stars, and those are the 2 people left. If you have a no preference, there is a no preference vote, which is, I mean, you could say it's kind of like not counting, but it's still, if you didn't have a preference between the 2, you're like, it's just like not voting. But you still had the ability to vote for the person that, like, you thought was, hey, I want to vote for this person because, I think that, they have my values. But if this person doesn't work, I want my vote to go to this person. So instead of splitting a party or something of that nature, you're not splitting it. You're taking, quote unquote, the popularity of the person, of whoever, of all the candidates. You take the 2 most popular votes, and then your vote still counts towards one of them, if that makes sense. So you get rid of the Ross Perot thing, where he pulled voters away from someone, and that that made the other party win. You get rid of that,
Right.
And then with the problem with ranked choice voting is sometimes what can happen is you're not represented accordingly if, like, your second or third choice was voted out because they didn't have the most popular amount. Like, you could eliminate the option of you getting your second or third vote. So that's one of the reasons why the star voting. And this is, I mean, to be honest with you, this is almost, to me, like a version of ranked choice voting, because you're ranking who you want. It's just, it's tabulated a little bit different, but yeah. So, but yeah, it's an interesting one. And the thing is like, when it comes to this stuff, I think this is probably one of the best from a representation standpoint. but it's not to say that we can't improve upon it. Like that.
Right.
That's the thing about it is we can always improve.
Yeah.
But it's
Well, and it's the fun thing about ideas like this, where you look at ranked choice and you look at star, and you're like, and maybe there's something else out there that we haven't looked at, and or something else that somebody has thought of in their head that just needs to it just needs to come out there. Um, the more and more we talk about this stuff, and I think about it, though, it's like the like actually getting these changes in place, or getting people to agree on it is going to be the much more difficult part than than actually coming up with a better way.
yeah.
For me, it always keeps circling back around. It's like, dude, how do we get partisanship out of politics? How do we get people focused on the people that they serve, and how do we um and less focused on their ideas, their ideals, their perspective, and 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 focused on what is the greatest good for the greatest number of people.
Yeah, I mean, if you, and I think that that's where the representation from voting comes in. Like when you're stuck voting for the lesser of two evils,
Yeah.
or this is my only choice because I definitely don't want that, and that comes from, no matter what part of the political spectrum you're on,
Yeah.
you know, when you had, I want to say it was 12 or 15 Republican options back in 2013, 2012, 2013. And essentially it was, well, I'm going to vote for
Well,
one of them no matter what. Like when it comes from a Republican standpoint, like one of these people is going to be my representative, whether I like what they say or not. One of these people is one of the ones that I'm going to have to vote for.
yeah.
And it's the same way with the Democratic side. When you have a two-party system, it's okay. Well, my options are this person that doesn't, align with any of my values, or this person that doesn't align with any of my values. Like,
Yeah. Well,
uh,
and also the idea I'm thinking about is that now you have this lever in politics where it's like, hey, if you don't toe the line, and you don't fall inside what I'm trying to do, from you know for example, from an executive branch perspective, we're going to primary you. You're out in 2 years, and uh, we're going to spend as much money as it takes to make sure that you never get out of a primary election, and we're going to smear you, and we're going to come after your family, like we're going to if you don't fall in line to what we're about, and what we're trying to do. And to me, that is just there's an evil to that, in my mind.
definitely.
I, and again, it goes back to the broader idea of what politics is today, um, and it it just doesn't sit right with me. And then you end up with people in Congress and in the Senate that are just fighting amongst themselves. They can't get anything done. The only things that they can seem to get done is to pass bills that create bureaucracy, and they create regulation that where these bureaucracies become a law unto themselves, and they're writing their own laws, and there's no review from legislature. And maybe the Supreme Court steps in and says that this is unconstitutional, and you've overstepped your bounds, and maybe they don't. But it's just
Well, I mean, it has
so.
to. it has to get to like until it
Right.
gets to a court, until it gets to that review.
Yeah. And that takes
Nobody's
time.
stopping anything from happening.
Yeah.
Like it's going to continue. Well, until somebody tells me that I can't. Like I'm going to continue doing what what I said I'm going to do, and then
Yeah.
you have to worry that if whether or
Right.
not people are going to listen to what the courts say.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the court doesn't have any quote unquote teeth. I forget who said it. Was it Jackson or someone?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they ruled on it. Now let them enforce it.
Yeah, I think he said something along the line. I believe it was Thurgood Marshall that was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at the same time. Where, and I could be wrong on that, but he said, well, Marshall has made his ruling. Now let him enforce it.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and that was
that's
that was
tough.
over the Trail of Tears. Where you're forcibly removing people from their land, their homes, their way of life, which is an incredible travesty in and of itself.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
definitely.
those people never got to go home. Like they got moved. I believe they got moved to Oklahoma, and that's that's where they stayed.
I mean, I think it was different people were put in different places, but yeah, that's essentially what it was. Is we're gonna give you this piece of land, and
Yeah, and you're good with
that's what
that,
you get.
right?
That's what
Like
you
you're
get.
cool. I mean, we don't care if you are like really, because we're gonna do it either way. Uh,
Which is one of those things from a perspective of precedence. The fact that that our government has the ability to take people for whatever they deem necessary, whatever that group of people may be, and to put them on a specific piece of land and say, well, this is what you get.
yeah,
That is you know we've had a lot of stuff happen in our country, but the fact that that decision can be made, and I don't know that Congress legislated on that.
yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those things. So the fact that, and you can do that with any group of people.
Well,
And
you can do it on an individual basis too. Look at man, I can't think of the term that to where the government can buy your land and
eminent domain.
eminent domain. Thank you. And I'm not saying there's not a place for that, right? Like if you need, like if a city needs a freeway through it, like and
That's well.
you
Wait a
know,
second. You're getting into a conversation because does the
sure.
city need a freeway or should they have public transportation? Like
Well, but
it's
so let's look at it from a for anything like you need some infrastructure somewhere, whether that's public transportation or a freeway or whatever it ends up being, and it's like, well, all of this land, there's housing on all of this land, and okay, and then you can look at the greater good and say, okay, well, we can get people apartments over here, or we can get people like new houses over here, but we need this land right here. Like and then we can all vote on it, and we can say, okay, yeah, um, this is something that's necessary for public good and public infrastructure. But I mean, dude, the laws on eminent domain are so freaking vague and shady, and like that it's like and I'm sure you could go look at back at any individual situation and probably see some impropriety and some immorality of things that have been done over the years with eminent domain. And where those people were not represented, and they were, and the government ran roughshod over them.
I mean, and that's the question is when is that allowed and who decides when that's allowed?
Right.
Like
And
that's the big thing is who makes the decision of, oh, we need to do this
yeah,
and this is how this is going to be done.
yeah.
It's
And sorry, go ahead.
No, it's tough to give that power, because that's literally what it is. You're giving that power to someone else.
Right.
You're giving, the people are giving that power away for the better good, and that's what the government is, quote unquote, supposed to be for. It's supposed to be for the betterment of everyone that they're doing this. So, how to, one bad apple, does that ruin the bunch, or do you get rid of that bad apple and let the other ones, go? Or, and it's, from a microbiology standpoint, I don't think that that's how that works, but I could be wrong. The But if you're talking about from a perspective of, what if it's not a bad apple? What if, hey, the apples don't fit in this container,
Hmm.
so we have to get rid of some. Which ones are we getting rid of?
Yeah. Yeah. And the question I'm asking myself right now is like, okay, in the current iteration of politics, what we have going on today, are the people represented fairly? Do they have avenues um, for discourse and for disagreement, and to have their voice heard in a situation like, going back to the Trail of Tears, um, and do they have the ability to fight that's not necessarily fight that system, but for that system to make sure that um, their rights are being protected, and their ability to pursue happiness, or life and liberty and all that stuff. And I don't and would I trust the people that are currently in power, or even, I would say, at least the last 20 years, that would I trust that the people that are being put in power to represent those people, and to fight for them? And my answer to that right now is just emphatically no. And how do you so how do you restructure the system so you don't have so my answer to that question in the next 20 years is yes. You know, like, now, do things fall through the cracks? Do bad things happen, especially when you're talking about the government of 343 million people? Absolutely. But you know, let's even use like an 80-20 rule. Is it 80% good and 20% bad? Um, like, I think I could get on board with that. But I don't feel like that I just don't feel like that's the situation now. And I wonder if we even put out a poll, like, what how would people respond to that? And, like, do you feel like people are being represented properly, and that their voices are being heard?
Well,
So
again,
long,
this goes
long
back.
road.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I was done.
I mean, this goes back to the representation of the people, and then, making sure that the majority doesn't overrule the minority. So if you have a minority that's, 40%, is a 60-40, like, do you, okay, well, we'll take care of the 60. Is the 40 just, it's the 40% the apples that you throw away? Like, hey, I got 100 apples, I can only fit 60 in this barrel. Well, we just going to get rid of the 40? Like how? And that's, or do we find a way? It's like, okay, well, maybe we need to get a bigger barrel. Maybe we need to readjust how this is done. Do we take and cut up the apples into halves so they fit in the barrel better? Do we cut them up into quarters so that they fit in the barrel better? So now if we cut the apples up into quarters, well, now you know, I can fit 70 apples in this barrel, and I'm only getting rid of 30. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the big question of how do you do that? And that, I mean, it's just like with the voting, with that star voting, is, okay, well, yeah, you have someone that's preferred, like for a certain group, and then you have a person that's preferred for another group, and then another group has another preferred person. So all the preferreds are different, but the person they definitely don't want is different for each one. But then you have this one person that just kind of floats across, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have that person that gets 60 to 70% across the board. It's, well, nobody hates him, but nobody, it's nobody's top choice, but it's nobody's worst choice.
Right.
So does that person, because that's going to represent the majority of people, is that the person you do, or do you do, well, we have to have somebody's top choice? Like how does that representation work? And I know that we're getting way off of what we're supposed to be talking about here from Section 5, but I think it's good that we do, because you can even look at like approval ratings of presidents. I have a feeling that depending on the context around what was asked from a perspective approval rating, like, well, do you approve the president because of these things? Do you approve the president because of these things? Like, what are you asking? Because data can be manipulated, and we both know this from the IT perspective. You can manipulate data to say whatever you want it to say, however you want it to look. I can make it look this person's got an 85% approval rating on the type of meat they like to eat. Like, well, would you prefer the president if he ate beef or if he ate pork? Or you can manipulate numbers however you want.
Yeah.
So that's the concern here from this perspective. And like you were talking about, representation of the people. But unfortunately, that's not what we're talking about. To be honest with you, that's what we're talking about overall from this whole podcast, is just a better representation of the people, and how to get.
Well, I guess I'm more thinking about it in the terms of Section 5, and in a broad perspective of what they're trying to say is like, hey, here's the rules that we're putting in place to govern this body of yourselves. Based on looking at the rules, and looking at what's put in place, and then looking at historically what's happened over the years, and the problems that seems to have created, and the system that we've ended up with, like, we've done, I don't think it's working. And so it's like, okay, well, what can we change? What can we put in, going back to your apples analogy, can we cut up the apples? But then on the other side of it, I think, well, if we cut up the apples, like, they go bad faster, there's this, and then you start talking about the law of unintended consequences.
So then we add lemon juice to the barrel. I don't see the problem here.
Exactly. You're not wrong. There's always a solution to, the human ingenuity never ceases to amaze me, as far as, okay, well, if this isn't working, let's try this.
And then by the time you're done, you're sitting there going, how much work did I just go through to get this? Okay, so we diced all of the apples. We soaked them in wax so that each piece is preserved for as long as possible. And we now have a barrel that is 95% 95% of the apples.
Yeah. But nobody can eat the apples because they're covered in wax.
They're not useful. It's not useful whatsoever. Like, you can't do anything with it.
Yeah, but to a certain extent, I kind of feel like that's what we've ended up with in Congress, like, where it's not working and it's not usable, and maybe that's the road that's been gone down for the last 250 years, and I don't know, or if it's time for something new, and again, like, I always keep coming back around to we need to we need to we need to change hearts and minds. We need to change the idea of what it means to be in public service, and bring back civic virtue, and give people options where you're looking at this person and it's there are some things about this person that about their personality, about their ability to get things done and come up with new ideas that I love. And then that person is thinking, man, I really want to do this because I look around at my community, I look around at at the world, and I want to make things better.
Well,
Rather than I want, like, after my 2 years in the House of Representatives, I want to be worth $1 million. I want to be worth $2 million.
well, the funny thing, and you talk about this. There was a representative that had talked about the fact that in the current climate, it's, I don't want these people that didn't vote for me to have things that they want. And then you have, like what you're talking about. I don't, the fact that you have representatives that were elected that are effectively saying, these people that didn't vote for me, I'm not going to represent them and they should suffer because they didn't vote for me. Versus what they're saying is, no, I want everybody to have this. I don't care if you're who you voted for, how you voted. You don't
I'm
deserve
going to make your
to
life
be
better in spite of
exactly. In
not
spite of
voting
you,
for me.
no, I want to take care of everybody, and that is definitely a mentality shift. The unfortunate part, and we've seen this from all over the world, and this is why, quote unquote, communist and or quote unquote socialist, purely communist, purely socialist stuff usually doesn't work, is because
Right.
there is somebody that takes advantage of that. And then, from a human perspective, it's very hard for one person not to take control.
Yeah.
It's very hard for there not to be a leader, whether it's a good leader or a bad leader. It's very hard for that person to not, for everybody to look to a person and say, hey, what should we do? And then for somebody that they look to as a leader, for the leader to say, okay, well, I'm not going to be the one to make the decision. Everybody needs to make the decision. So let's talk. Let's figure out what is the best decision, have everybody's input, because the problem is everybody doesn't want to give their input. Everybody doesn't want to decide where this next house should be built, or should this road go through this section. Why are we talking to people, that are 2 states away, whether or not this road should be built in this area? We obviously want to do, local people that are local and that are going to be impacted by it. And that's where you get the different levels of government, local government, county, state, all above. So the federal government should be making decisions. As you get higher and higher, you have more responsibility to the people that you're representing, and you have a very much so wider diversity of people that you're representing, but also your decisions that you should be making should not be affecting groups of people. It's going to be a wide berth. Like the federal government shouldn't be deciding whether or not a road goes through this town, or this road should be made from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. The federal government should not be doing that. And I'm pretty sure everybody is going to agree that, the federal government shouldn't decide how, whether a Target is allowed to be built in this particular spot, unless, obviously there's always exceptions, unless it's on, federally protected land, unless there's a reason, from that perspective that it shouldn't be built there. We're not, hopefully we're not going to be building a Target on the National Mall, right? That would be something that, hey, the federal government, even local legislature, that is a protected site that you cannot build that on.
So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of space in the National Mall.
And you got that waterfront,
Yeah.
you got all that. It'd be really nice to have that nice bullseye.
Yeah.
Then a nice big red bullseye right there on the mall to reflect off of the pond.
Yeah.
I think that would be really, really cool.
I like where your head's at.
No, but so then you have it. It goes down to state and then local and all that. So that's the reason why you have this part of the Constitution, and we'll get down to it even more to where the powers of Congress. They don't have that power. That's reserved to the states, and then the states give that to local. And that's something that we have to remember about this. And I think it is something that is missing from a lot of people's the way that they look at things. Like,
well, yeah, like the idea that somebody's identity or their ideology is so wrapped up in the idea of who becomes president, when really that person should not have much of an effect on your daily life at all. Like,
correct.
not really something that you should be that concerned about in your life. And yet we have so many people that like you see after the elections that the tears coming down people's eyes because their candidate lost, and I'm just like, what? And I'm looking at that and I'm like, what is it that you actually think that you lost here? Like, and again, over the last 20, 25 years, I believe there is more at stake, and there is more that there's more being wrapped up in that because more and more power is being consolidated at the top. And so they do have more of an effect on your daily life. And we can, and I think you can turn on the news.
We can see that
on any given day and see that as well.
I mean,
So I do understand the frustration, and I do understand the emotion wrapped up in it, but I don't think that it should be this way.
no, it shouldn't. I remember back in the day, 20 some years ago, to where there was some inkling of okay, well, there's things going on like foreign conflicts, and there's things like that did impact some people's lives, whether it's losing someone in combat or things of that nature that did impact a lot of people's lives, but it wasn't a daily thing that people were concerned about from a perspective of what the president was doing. It wasn't a daily life event that you're dealing with of well, what is going to happen today that is going to affect my life? Like, what business is going to go under because they can't afford to pay for tariffs? What is going to happen? What business is going to go under because they don't have any workers anymore? They have nobody to do the work. What is going to happen to my farm because I can't sell to the people I was selling to anymore because of some unilateral decision that some bureaucrat made up in that a bureaucrat made down in Washington. Like there are very far-ranging things that have been happening today that, because of, from our Constitution perspective, those powers have kind of danced around the Constitution, because there isn't anything that specifically says that, oh, well, I can't do this, or there's nothing that says that, oh, well, you're allowed to do it, and there's nothing that says I can't do it. So obviously I can do whatever I want,
right.
In order to be able to do certain things. You're talking about, people's livelihood over the past month, being affected, by the government shutdown. And the thing is, it's not just federal employees.
Right.
There's services that other people rely on, just like when, Congress, approved and gave out grants to, certain things for things to be done. Like, that money was allocated and given. And then you have someone come in and just says, nope, you don't get that money anymore.
Well, I can use my own personal experience as an example. I'm currently going to school, and I have my GI Bill benefits, and some other rehabilitation and education programs through the VA. I can't even get a hold of anybody at the VA right now. I get an auto reply email that says, hey, we're in the middle of a government shutdown, like I'll reply when we get back, and I don't think that this is going to happen, but like, what if my GI Bill doesn't come in next month? Like I count on that money, like, and so like, and that you can just decide that on a whim for something that's been put in law and put in place for since, well, I use the post 9/11 GI Bill, so the since what, 2000, 2001, 2002, I think was
2002.
when
Yeah.
they, yeah, they passed that, and that's kind of, it's a little bit jarring, and it's a little bit scary in that sense. And on the broader perspective of what you're talking about, it's like when you look at the Constitution, and I'm thinking back to the libertarian Constitution that we've been using, how they really didn't change anything, and it for me, it goes back to that. And you talk about dancing around the Constitution, and working, working in these gray areas, and these people in power have found these ways around these different rules. And it's like, I get why the framers, and why they kept some stuff vague, because I think they were all operating under the condition that you know that the people that we were going to put in place, and the people that we were going to be put in power, for
Should be
lack
the
of
best of
something
us.
better, to be the best of us, and look at a particular situation and say, no, we're not going to do that. Yeah, I'm not saying that we can't do that. I'm saying we're not going to, because it's immoral. It's improper, and it doesn't serve the best interest of this country.
Well,
But that's not what we're experiencing right now.
well, you have to look at
And,
it.
and
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and so now it's like, okay, so I guess we have to get uber specific, looking at it from one perspective, and say, like, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you like, and find all of the, from a computer science perspective, where we have to find all the special cases, all of the little bugs that are built into the system, that people are going to go and look for, and try to find, which is,
Exploits. All of the
yeah,
exploits.
yeah, all of the exploits, so that you can't game the system. But that, to me, like, and in computer science, that is exhausting, to sit there for hours and think, okay, hey, what did I miss here? What am I not checking for, that's gonna cause my program to fail at some inopportune moment in production. And you have alpha and beta testing, and which is great. But when you talk about alpha and beta testing with people's lives, and their livelihoods, and their day to day, that's not. I don't know if that's the right answer. I'm not saying we can't do that for some stuff, but the idea that you got a beta test for 5 years, and figure out, like, oh, okay, well, what's, where are the exploits, and then people are going to get screwed over in those 5 years, like, that doesn't sit very well with me. And so, but I also, but like I said, the process of getting that specific and putting all that stuff into the Constitution, is the idea of it is exhausting to me. And so I don't know what the answer is here, because the way that they've written this, and going back to Section 5 again, I'm not saying that there's little things that we can't improve upon, or that we could add in there, but we're never going to find all the bugs. I mean,
Yeah, you're right about that. And well, I mean, even when you look at it from a computer science perspective, you're not only are you doing the initial product, and then you're trying to get to a certain outcome, but you're going through iterations to get there. And during those iterations, whether it's alpha, beta, all of those pieces, you're having playtesters. You're having people that are testing the software, that are using the software to make sure that they're getting what they expect out of it. But it's one of those things, even from like a playtesting perspective. So, okay, well, this has gone through alpha, it's gone through beta, and then you put it out, and then all of a sudden somebody is like, oh, well, here where it says put in the number of items, I put A, and then the whole system crashes, and you're like, well, it says put in a number. Why would you put in A?
Yeah.
Like, well, what do you mean? Why
I
would I
wanted
put
item
A?
A.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but and it's one of those things you're sitting there going like, put in you get this a lot with address forms. Put in put in the state. Well, if you accidentally put a number in there or the zip code, and you actually put accidentally put a letter or something of that nature, to where you put a phone number and you put an O instead of a 0, like it's those types of things that you're like, but that's not the way it was supposed. You were supposed to do this. And then that's why we create laws.
Yeah.
That's why we have laws, because we can't prevent people from doing something. We can't stop them from doing it. So we create a law that says you can't do this. You have to do this. And then all that is a social contract. It's just a piece of paper that says you do this or else this is going to happen. And you're like, well, says who? Make me.
Yeah.
Make me. And it's like, okay, well, we're going to do this to you.
Try to enforce it.
Sure, go for it. What are you going to do? I'm going to pay that guy that says that I'm not supposed to do this or whatever. I'm going to pay him, or I'm going to give him whatever, or I'm going to hold something over his head like, oh, hey, if you convict me and you put me in here, I'm going to kill your kid. You better find a way around it, or I'm going to have your kid kidnapped, or hey, look at these photos of you doing this thing that, hey, could ruin your career. Do you want to ruin your career, or are you comfortable where you are? And that's, like I was saying, from a communist perspective, if, where communism is the people own the means of production, eventually somebody is going to come out on top. Eventually somebody is going to take advantage of the people by saying, oh, well, I'm doing this because it's better than what you had before. So I'm going to take over and it's going to be good for a while, but then eventually somebody is going to get in power that doesn't have those same viewpoints. And that was why we created the US, because we didn't feel it was right that one person, the king, had the ability to tax or not tax, or we didn't have representation from that perspective. So, the humans that were here in all their infinite wisdom created this Constitution. And unfortunately, you never see all of the things. 250 years, the progress we've made, how easy it is to get from one place to another. How quick we can do certain things. The fact that you can have somebody make a comment on a digital platform that causes a market or some sort of commerce to increase or decrease to the tune of billions of dollars, and then make another comment later that reverses that, and you have people that have made money off of that.
Yeah. And
well, now you've made this money.
Have that kind of power.
Yeah. Now that you've made this money, you're beholden to me, or else I'm going to ruin it for you.
Yeah.
Like, I've given you this, now you need to give me this. And I know that this is recent, but the fact that you have a private citizen that has donated or given money to pay for a national military salary, supposedly. How does that work? How does a private citizen one private citizen pay for a national military? How does that work? How is that possible?
And the idea of it in and of itself is like that a private citizen basically owns a national military and is at their is at their whims. I mean, well, and as you were saying that, I was thinking, we're not supposed to have a king. We're not supposed we were the whole idea of the Constitution is to decentralize power and put checks and balances on that power in order to stop exactly what we're talking about from happening. And yet it feels like
It's not working.
and yeah, and especially I think in the last 15 years, you've seen it. You've seen this consolidation of power, and in the last 10 months, like you've seen an acceleration of that, and the idea that a group of people have gamed the system to the point where they've figured out like that I can pretty much do what I want with impunity, is uh honestly, like it stops me in my tracks, and that they're okay with
That's
doing what they want with impunity, and that probably, I haven't talked to any of these people, that they probably think in their head that they're doing the right thing, that they're um that they're serving the public good in some way. And when you
well, I
have,
mean, real quick, I just want to make a comment. Serving the public, as in the people that matter to them.
sure, yeah, and and then not only that, but the idea that there's probably quite a hefty percentage of people in this country that are looking at this and saying, you know what, this is okay. Like this is working for me, and that they can't see it from another perspective, and look at the people that it's not working for, and and say, hey, we shouldn't, like this isn't bothering me, but it's upsetting all these other people over here, and I should be concerned about that.
Well, I think the biggest thing with that is it's not bothering me, so what do I care about other people?
Right.
And this is the interesting part, and this is like earlier when you were talking about morally right or wrong, or just doing something morally in general. Depending on where you find those morals that you have come from, which, from most religions' perspectives, it comes from one person. Those morals that you have or that you quote, they're given to you by someone. God created the 10 Commandments. So those are my morals that I live by. You don't commit adultery on your, on your wife, right? Adultery is bad. And we all know that every, religious person that believes in, the 10 Commandments and or morally from God is obviously they don't commit adultery because
Yeah, never happens.
that would be, an affront to, your morals, right? So I think that's where a lot of that comes from, is except people, for a lot of people, religion is a pastime. It's something you go do, you participate in, and you use it for what's good for you. And then for when it's not good for you, it doesn't really matter, because, I'm whatever. But your morals come from a single thing up at top. And when you look at what is going on right now, people's morals are coming from a person on top, and it ain't God. it ain't the Bible. That's for damn sure. But
Not my Bible.
yeah, right. So I think that when you're talking morals, and there's a ton of YouTube videos and all that out there about, how do people get morals, especially you have religious people saying, well, if if you're atheist and you don't believe in any religion or whatever, how can you have morals? Because that's where your morals come from, your religion. It's like, okay, cool, cool story, bro.
Yeah.
But it, you know, if that's the case, then please tell me what religion these people believe in that are doing what they're doing right now, that are consolidating power, you know, that are, you know, hoarding money, that are allowing things to happen. You know, what is this religion you speak of that follows these particular morals? Please let me know. I would like to know, so that would be another one that I know that I would not want to participate in.
Yeah.
You know, that, and that's kind of, you know, the gymnastics that you have to do from that perspective, to make that work for you, and your morals. So when you're, and I know that, and I'm going to try to bring it back around here. We've talked about this before. I don't remember who it was, but it was one of the founding fathers, and you probably know off the top of your head, that said that the only way that this type of government works is if the people that are in power are actually doing this for the people.
Yeah,
Like
I think you're going back to civic virtue, and that was John Adams.
John Adams, talking about,
Yeah. Yeah,
civic
he
virtue.
was big on civic virtue, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, whatever your morals may be, if you hold the civic virtue of, hey, I got to do what's best for everyone, not just myself, I don't
Or a
care what your
small
morals
small
are.
subject,
Yeah.
subset. Yeah.
So, you know, and that's where you were saying that, hey, we need to have a fundamental change of the way people see things, and they need to stop being all for themselves. The only problem is in the society that we've created from a capitalistic standpoint, if you want to go that far, it's very self-centric. It is very, I need to do for myself, screw everybody else, because I need to be, you know, what is survival of the fittest, or whatever you want to call it. Like, you know, the market will weed out the things that people don't want, or whatever.
Well, yeah, the idea that
I don't.
self-interest is going to drive the market and drive the economy, but that the other side of that being that there is going to be some morality that is going to keep that in check, and unfortunately, the, the idea of and I think that most people in general are moral people, like especially when you were talking about, you know, that religion comes from your higher power and God, and then it
Morals.
and then it,
Morals.
yeah, you're and it trickles down. And I I always wonder about that, because like I I
You don't
I
believe in
think
the
about,
trickle down theory, that everything trickles down from the
well,
supreme
I'm not so
being
much
up at the
worried about
top?
the trickle down. I'm just using that as like a uh, that well, because religion is a hierarchy, right? Like most religions are a hierarchy. You know, if you look at stuff like Buddhism and Taoism and some other Eastern religions like that, it's more individualistic as far as your relationship with God and or gods. Um, and whereas the in Western religions, like or even some Eastern religions like Islam, the the morality comes from God, and then it comes down from the hierarchy. And, and I I like I've been playing with this idea of universal truth, universal, some things that all humans like. Right, if you take everything else out of the equation that we can agree on, like you shouldn't kill people, like you shouldn't rape people. Some basic ideas, and if it helps you to say, hey, that comes from God, great. Like for me, it comes from me. It comes from inside me, and there's something in me, and this could be coming from God too.
It's
I
called
don't know.
God. It's called God. Don't you
Yeah.
know that He is
No,
within all of us? You know.
yeah, and I know you're being a little bit facetious here, and I always love that. But
Hey, it
but
says right in the
but
Bible
maybe
that he is
yeah,
us. He made us in his image. So we are him
yeah,
and he is us. So
yeah,
you do have some sort of moral compass within
and,
yourself
yeah.
according
And
to the
I
Bible.
and I think there's some truth to that, but I think it's a little bit more complicated than people make it out to be. Um, it's uh, and so like for me, it's just like I have a responsibility to other people, to other human beings, because of uh, just for the simple fact of being human, and that I've been given this moral compass by whatever you want to call it, like, and that in and of itself is enough. And I don't know how to teach that to other people, or give that to other people.
Well, the unfortunate part about that is when even if you try to give that to other people and you try to have them, represent that, the unfortunate part is they look around and they see other people not doing that, and they see
Yeah,
how successful and how much power and influence those people have, and they begin to question, well, why would I do this when I can do that and I can have
yeah,
that power or whatever. You're earlier when we were talking about the free market and being able to get rid of oh well, the market will get rid of the things that people don't want, right? I don't want influencers. I don't want people making millions and millions of dollars off of their kids because they record their kids. I don't want, those are the types of things that the exploitive stuff.
yeah.
I don't think that it's right, and it, in my opinion, should have no place in capitalism.
I agree.
But
I mean,
yet you have it. Look at what happened in Hollywood with all the child stars and the abuse that happened,
yeah,
to those kids and taking advantage of it. I mean, you have it again with women, and whether it's music or Hollywood or whatever, the exploitation of them. It's one of those things to where, and I'm not saying it only goes one way. It can go both ways as well. People exploiting other people for their own benefit, and unfortunately, our current society and the way that our system of society is set up, it allows that to happen. It it,
yeah,
it almost encourages that to happen because, well, if you
yeah,
put limits on what people can do, then obviously you're regulating their lives, and you shouldn't be able to do that. And this goes back to government from a perspective of, for the people, by the people. You look at your libertarian perspective, hey, everybody should be able to do what they want as long as it doesn't infringe on somebody else's rights.
hmm
Well,
you
whenever
can't agree
somebody
to what
is,
rights are. So
yeah, whenever somebody's holding, hey, I could get, I could give you $1 million, or I could ruin your life. And this is where the bad part is when it's, they're not doing something for their own benefit. It ends up being to where they're doing it just so bad things don't happen to them. It's not to where they're doing it because they're getting something out of it. They're doing it because to prevent bad things from happening.
yeah,
That's where exploitation comes in. Hey, I'm doing this because I don't want to find myself, cut up in a bag or at the bottom of a lake or at whatever,
like,
because this
or
person,
have somebody come through and murder my kids.
yeah, or whatever, burn my house down, take all of my, resources away, separate me from my family, remove me from my job. I don't want these things to happen. So I have to be complicit because I don't have any other option.
Yeah,
There's no recourse for me to be able to, because of this person has this particular power and this influence. I I can't do, from a libertarian perspective. I don't have my rights anymore. My rights have been taken away because of
yeah,
these people in power, and
yeah,
that's something from a libertarian perspective that they should be up in arms about.
Yeah.
because and it's
Well, I mean, and the idea of them saying like, hey, this is the Constitution, and this is what we ascribe to, and this is what we live by, and we mean it this time. I get the idea of it, but it's like, I,
but again, we mean
as
it.
as far as human, yeah, as far as human nature goes, it doesn't seem to be working. Like, and it's like the people in power are not asking, they're asking themselves one question: can I do this? Can I get away with this? And if the answer is yes, then that's the end of that's at the end of the thought process. That's the end of the conversation. Not should I be
Well,
doing this?
no,
And
I would go a step further, and I'm not even sure they're asking if they can do this.
yeah,
I think it's more along the lines of, I'm going to do this, figure out how to make sure I can do this, like to make sure
yeah,
that it works. Like it's not even a more of, hey, can I do this or not? It's more of a, I'm going to do this, make sure that it happens. Is the way
yeah.
that it's working now.
Yeah, I was thinking back to our incident response days, and the people, some of the people that we saw and the people that we worked with, and the power that they would exert over their employees, and in different situations, and we saw some really good people, but we also saw some really really awful people, and and it's those really awful people that thrive, and but
And it's
in
sad. It
those
really is
situations,
sad.
yeah, and they and the I guess the thing that I read into it is like looking at them and talking to them, and and having interactions with them. As far as I could tell, there is no way that in any measurable sense that person was happy, that person was was satisfied with their life for whatever was going on, whatever pain they'd been through, whatever tribulations in their life. I just I couldn't work it out. I couldn't see it, and I and I think that's and that's why I say you and I have a unique perspective on that, because I look at that and be like, you know what, I could do that. I could be that person, but I don't want to be. Like I don't
Exactly.
like I have no interest in living my life that way, because what it would do to me mentally, probably end up physically because of my mental health, and I don't think when people go into those situations, they get asked to do something, or like it comes from the top down or whatever, that like, hey, I'm going to do this, you need to figure out how to make that happen, and then look at that and turn around and say, I'm not doing that. Like, you can fire me, like you can do whatever, because I refuse to turn myself into that person. And I don't know if it's a mental fortitude issue, or if it's just part of the
Well,
human condition.
well, yeah. I mean, you have to look at it to where a lot of people aren't in the position to be able to say no, and that's
Yeah.
where you run into, and that's what you have a lot here, to where the consolidation of power and them being able to subjugate the people by saying, well, you don't do this, well then, it's like what you have going on right now with the government shutdown. If you don't toe the line and open the government back up, we're going to make sure that we take these things away from people. And it's your fault.
Hmm. Right.
What? No, no, that's not how this
You're like, what
works.
just happened here?
Yeah, and but that's the mentality of these people.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here beating you in the face, and it's your fault. It's your fault. And that sounds oddly familiar from a abusive relationship standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, it's your fault that I am mad because you didn't have dinner on the table when I got home after drinking, dinner was cold. Well, it doesn't matter that I was drunk at the bar and I just came home. I'm going to beat the shit out of you because you didn't have a warm dinner sitting on the table. No matter if you had it warm 2 hours ago when I should have been home, doesn't matter. It's not warm now, so it's your fault. It's your
Yeah.
fault that I'm beating the crap out of you. It's your fault that I'm doing this. It's, well, you shouldn't have worn that dress because obviously you wanted me to rape you. Like it's that type of thing. And it's really funny. I like the opposite of that is, oh, well, I beat you over the head with a baseball bat because you weren't wearing a helmet. So obviously you wanted me to hit you over the head with a baseball bat. I mean, that's the perspective that we're taking here is, well, if you're not giving me what I want, so I'm going to beat the crap out of you. It's your fault.
There's going to be consequences for
Yeah.
not giving me what I
Yeah.
want.
It's your fault that I'm not getting what I want. It's your fault that you're trying to do something for the better of the people. It's your fault that you're doing this, and I'm going to take even more away from you now.
Yeah.
And
Regardless of the impropriety of the action, like there's consequences for not giving me what I want, and that's the only way that I'm looking at it. Yeah.
isn't that a narcissism? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a psychiatrist or whatever, but I think that's narcissism. I don't know. Anyways, what were we talking about again? I could have swore we were
Section
talking
5.
something.
But I mean, and I do feel like all this ties back in because it's just like, what do we put in here that stops someone from doing what we're talking about? What do we or stops a group of people or a subset of people from doing what what's being put in here that is designed to protect against the consolidation of power. And I don't.
Well, it always, for the most part, it comes down to money. That's the biggest thing. The biggest thing is money.
That's fair.
I mean, when you look at it, most power is bought from money, and you can look at it from, I don't care how far back you go in history. Wealth has always been what ruins
Wealth and resources.
Yeah, what ruins governments. Period. I mean, you take and you look at, back in feudal times when you had, lords and kings and all of that stuff. It was all about the ruling class. You have the caste system in India. You have the part where, well, these people are beneath us, so they deserve to be down there, and they should do whatever we tell them to do. And what the U.S. tried to get out of was that. But still, at that point, you still had slavery. You still had people that were beneath other people, like, oh, well, they're just slaves, so what does it matter? And then we've slowly worked our way out of that, Civil War and all that stuff. But, I mean, it's just a small thing, Civil War, no biggie. As we're slowly working our way out of those things and making, quote unquote, life more fair, for all of the constituents, you're always going to have a group of people that's marginalized for whatever reason.
Disenfranchised, yeah.
Yeah, disenfranchised, marginalized, seen as lesser, whatever. I mean, you have that now with immigrants. Immigrants are going through that, but you had that back in, what was it, the immigration boom or whatever. You had the Irish were seen as lesser than the Italians, or the Italians were seen lesser than whoever, and the Polish, and you had all those people that migrated here and lost a lot of their culture. I know people, kids that were growing up that were from Irish people or not Irish, Italian people that came across. And they didn't teach their kids Italian because they wanted them to fit in at school. Mm-hmm. They didn't want them to. So they literally lost the ability to speak Italian.
Well, and they lost part of their culture.
Yeah.
I mean, which isn't always necessarily a bad thing, but I mean, I don't, teaching language, like, I mean, that's such a valuable tool, like, to take that away is
all because of wanting to fit in. Yeah, all because
Yeah.
of wanting to fit in, wanting to whatever, the whole melting pot thing. And, most of the people that are in this country came from somewhere in Europe. okay, not most of the people, there's a lot of people that, are descendants from people in Africa and South America and Central America. But from the perspective of the migrants that came over from Europe, a lot of those people, like you still have people that still, speak Italian, and people are getting back into their heritage, but then persecute other people for practicing their heritage. Like, it's like, how the hell does that work?
I had a similar conversation with somebody last night where he's Mexican American. He's a U.S. citizen, and he was telling me about how he was like 2 or 3 years ago or 4 years ago, he was angry that there were all these people from Central and Southern America that that were crossing the border, and he was mad about that. But on the other side of it, he's like, he looked at it and he's like, well, my parents were illegal immigrants and came to this country, and then and built a better life for me. So it's like, why am I getting mad at these people for wanting to do the same thing that I that I have taken so much advantage of, and and he's so grateful for everything that he has. And it's like, he's like, what, where he's having this, like, as we were having the conversation, I could see that he was having this dissociative moment of like, why am I mad at these people for doing the same thing? And there's a lot wrapped up in that, because he was telling me, Mexicans and Central Americans, they, to a certain extent, they don't get along, and they, there's quite a bit of bad blood there. And he's like, and I think it stems from that. And it's like, but it's my own personal bias, my own personal perspective that's twisting this. And I think that there's a lot of people doing that on a daily basis, and people in this country where they're like, well, yeah, it's okay that, they came here illegally, and these immigrants, and and then you can just easily write them off and say, oh, well, they suck anyways, because they're taking my jobs, or whatever excuse or explanation you want to give yourself. And it's like, it's not that simple. Like,
Exactly.
And how do you give people that perspective? How do you make them look outside themselves and see that that things are so much more complicated than that? And then create a system that allows for that grace, allows for that, because that's what we're living under. And what it seems to have done is create a system that allows people to find loopholes and find find the bugs, and then exploit them.
Definitely. And it's funny that you mentioned that, and it's and I think the bias from like Central America is the same thing that you have over in East Asia, like, with the different, whether it's
Indians
Korean,
and Pakistanis.
Well, I mean that too, but also the Middle East and the different types of people around there, but also the Far East when you're talking about like Korean, Japanese, Chinese, all of Vietnamese, all of that area from the Southeast Asia as well. And then you got your Middle East, your Pakistan, your Afghanistan, your Indian, your Iranian, all of that.
And it's like, what really separates all of us and those people, other than an imaginary line drawn on a map?
Well, and
I know I know it's more complicated than that, and I'm oversimplifying, but still, like, if you break it all down and take everything else out of it, it's like, what is it other than that, and why can't we all just fucking get along?
Right. No, and that's the thing. But unfortunately, in this country, we cultivate exactly what your friend is going through. We cultivate, hey, I'm getting mine, nobody else should. Like, you're just impeding on my ability to get mine.
Yeah.
You're
rather than, hey, I have all this, like, I'd like you to have some.
Yeah.
And I just thought of that, and the first thing I thought of was like the Jesus and the Bible, and the teachings that come out of that, and the morality that he was trying to teach, and it's right there. and that if you went and polled, like, all of Americans and said you're Christian, and you probably, I don't know, maybe get 60 to somewhere between 50 and 70% would be my guess. And I wonder how many how many of those people you could actually look at their lives and say that, you know, that this is the life that I'm living by those teachings. And
Yeah.
how much better off we would all be if we all just ascribed to those ideals. And I'm, you know, obviously there's going to be some mistakes made inside of that, you know, but if we actually tried, if we actually gave it an effort to be like that, how much better things would be.
Definitely. No, I don't disagree. I mean, that's why Thomas Jefferson did what he did to the Bible. And you have the Jefferson Bible. You know,
Yeah.
it's funny how all that works. But anyways, you know, we've been off talking about the morality of the world and people, and how do we prevent that happening. And it'd be nice to be able to sit down and say, okay, well, you can no longer be, you can no longer be an asshat. You have to
Yeah, maybe
actually,
we should make that
care.
the 19th rule or I'm sorry, we should make that number 5 in section 5 of the membership. And yeah,
Right?
no assholes.
What is it? Don't be an asshole. That's
Yeah.
that's one of the requirements. If you are
Don't-
one of those, nope, sorry, no luck.
like, no assholes, douchebags. You know what else?
What,
You
what
know,
other what other words do you want to put in there that
yeah.
you know? So so I guess the question that we were talking about, and before we got off on this wonderful tirade for the last hour and some odd minutes.
I don't know if it's really an aside because, like I said, when you're talking about the rules and the powers of Congress, I- like
You got to take
what?
it into an account. You have to take that into an account, that people are not going to be there for the people, that they're going to be
Yeah,
there for ulterior motives.
that
Period.
somebody's going to game the system.
Exactly.
So what do we do? Do we get more specific? Do we keep it the same and say we mean it? Do we take the Republican stance, or not the Republican, the Libertarian stance? Um, and
So
then on the other side of it, as you create more rules, you create more unintended consequences.
correct. And that's and the unfortunate thing is, and the thing that I'm noticing the most is when you look at the three different ones, the conservative, libertarian, and progressive, and the conservative is supposed to be the one that wants least government, right?
Right.
Conservative,
Well, I think
conservative.
libertarians want the least amount of government, don't they?
I would say yes. That, well, they want the least amount of power to the government. Yes, they don't
Yeah.
want the government to have a lot of power. The conservative viewpoint here, and a lot of this stuff is they want to create more rules, and that's really interesting from that perspective. Is they're the ones that are creating the most rules from that perspective about how things should be done, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if you look at it from like the way that we talk about it, like the more rules you create, the more opportunities for unintended consequences and for things to not go the way that you're trying to
Yeah.
make them go. So then what do is you come back and you make more rules, you make more laws, and
Yeah.
you
And
try
then
to
you end up with
constrain
bloated
more.
government bureaucracy. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then people don't know the rules, and the rules are arbitrary, and nobody wants to follow them anyways. And it's all just
Exactly.
noise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from a conservative perspective, it's like, and I want to make a differentiation between religious conservative people and conservative people, because personally, in my opinion, religion has no place in government whatsoever at all, because it doesn't make for a good government, period. Because once you start introducing any form of laws or thoughts around religion and government, you open up the possibility of other religions also doing the same. So, and I think our founding fathers knew that, and they did that on purpose to intentionally leave religion out of government. Period. Most of the stuff that has happened in regards to God or any of that type of stuff have happened within the past, I want to say 50 to 100 years. of putting God in things and kind of trying to put religion into government, it is a bad idea across the board. There's a reason why you have a separation of church and state, and it's because of things like that. Because
Well, and I think it's all centered around the idea of faith, right? If you ask somebody to follow the rules and you do that based on the belief of things that you cannot see, that you cannot quantify, you are creating a recipe for disaster.
definitely, and I mean, but you also get the fact of, I think it's the I don't know if it's the Church of Satan or whatever it is, but you have it to where somebody's like, hey, you got to put the 10 Commandments on the wall. It's like, well, then another religion comes and says, cool, you got to put my 10 Commandments up there. Oh, cool, you
Right.
got to put my 10 Commandments up there. Cool, we have to put the Muslim whatever up there. Once you start introducing religion into things, you're introducing a multitude of opinions, is essentially what it is, because you can't have just one. That's not the way that our country was founded. It's not, doesn't say it anywhere in any way, shape, or form in any of the founding documents. There's an intentional reason why it's worded the way that it's worded
Yeah.
in the Declaration of Independence. I don't think it doesn't say anything. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about God or religion in the Constitution. They explicitly
Yeah, it's
left
like
that out.
Pringles, Once you
When we
once you
pop,
pop,
you can't
you
stop.
can't
But
stop.
but even in the Declaration of Independence, it's they're they're given these unalienable rights bestowed upon them by their creator, not the creator, not
Right.
not God, by
Yeah.
their creator, meaning whoever they think that they like. There's no specification in that. It's whoever they think created them, they are given unalienable rights, and that's an
Yeah.
interesting, and you find that a lot even in the Constitution, the way that they word things. It's I mean, I can just imagine 30 plus people sitting there. Nope, take the out. Nope, should be they. No, it should be like, nope, we got to change this word. This word doesn't make sense because it can be like, can you just imagine 30 people arguing over, well, that I don't like that word. That word needs to be changed to something
Yeah.
like just but that's what they did. That's
Yeah.
what they did. They argued over the words and the way that it's put in there specifically for those reasons, to make sure that it couldn't be interpreted in different ways. And that's why
Well,
it is a conundrum.
I mean, I don't think I've ever had the significance of that statement really dawn upon me until it's like, until just right now, like their creator, like so whatever you believe in, like
Correct.
wherever you think your creation came from, like where it doesn't matter, like that's where you get it from. Um, and that those, and I think it's kind of sort of implied that those rights
Yeah.
are sort of universal, regardless of your chosen creator, or what you choose to believe, is part of your intelligent design theory.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is the conservative Constitution, they put that in the preamble. You remember that? They put that part from the Declaration of Independence.
Hmm.
The first line, all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights.
Yeah.
Right there. Like, and people are going to interpret that to say, well, they mean God. No, they don't. Well, they
Mm-mm.
do, but they also mean Muhammad, Allah,
Allah.
Buddha. Pick whoever you want. Whoever people deem as their creator, they are given certain rights that are unalienable. Now, people want to argue with me that they can, but there is a reason why it says their creator and not the creator.
Yeah.
Big, huge, huge difference. Huge difference. Well, it's a typo. They accidentally added an IR to the end of the. No, it's yeah, but it's funny. And then from the conservative perspective, the fact that you put that in the Constitution in the preamble, like, I mean, that holds just as much weight to say, all religions, just as much as the part to where it says governments instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. We have the right, the people, to alter or abolish it and institute a new government. Period. Like that's,
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
powerful.
it really is. I mean, the fact that you want to put that in the preamble, like there's a lot to that. Like it means a lot. Like the Declaration of Independence was no small thing that the founders of this country put out. Like that was huge to have a country say, "Screw you, England."
Yeah.
we doing this.
We're not doing this anymore.
We're doing it live.
We're out.
Right?
Deuces.
Peace. So anyways, we got to get through this. We at least got to get through this section, and we're already 2 hours in, man. Okay, so thoughts on each house should be judged. I really like the idea of a tribunal, of a bipartisan tribunal that the conservative constitution that they came up with, the leader of the House and the majority and minority leaders of the Senate, and 3 members, Speaker and the minority leader of the House. Like, I like the fact that one, you don't have, it's a bipartisan thing. It is something that we don't have 400 plus people or 100 people trying to vote on whether or not this person should have a seat. You have representation from, the leaders of the party and the minority. So you have both the majority and minority. And, if we ever manage to get past this, 2-party system, and then 3 members chosen by the unanimous vote of those 4 members. So you have the majority and the minority of the House and the Senate. So this is key here. You're giving representation to the state to decide on a seat in the House, a seat for the people, because you're giving the Senate, the majority and minority leaders of the House and the Senate. So you're essentially giving state representation and people representation to be able to decide on the seats for the other. I don't know if I like that or not.
Yeah. Because you're moving power away from the people. I get what I think that's what you're saying.
Well, no, it's not power away from the people, because and I understand it's for a congressional seat, but you say, okay, so someone from that's, you got a House seat representation. So you have somebody from the, 4th district of wherever, that's going for a House seat. The way it is stated in the Constitution now, it is each body should take care of their own election problem. So the people that are the representation of the people are the ones that make the decision on any conflicts when it comes up to elections about the people. I agree with that to an extent. And the same way with the House. The House has the ability to do that for them as well, for the state representation. But what this says that you have 2 people appointed by the minority and majority leader of the House and 2 people appointed by the majority and minority of the Senate, and 3 members chosen by a unanimous vote of those 4 members. So you're taking 2 people from the House, 2 people from the Senate, and then 3 other members that can be of whichever one to decide on a House seat or a Senate seat. So you're giving representation to the House to be able to decide on the Senate.
Okay.
So, and I'm wondering vice versa, if that makes sense. I'm wondering, shall establish a tribunal that should be judge of the elections, return qualification of all elected federal officials, consisting of one member chosen by each of the speaker and minority speaker and the majority, and the majority and minority leaders of the Senate, and three members. So my question is, I'm guessing they're saying that it's supposed to be members of Congress.
Yeah, they don't really get specific about it, do they?
No, yeah, I think, well, one member. I'm guessing the members that they're talking about are the members of Congress, and I wonder if, because of this doesn't say that the the House majority and minority have to pick someone from the House.
Yeah.
If they wanted, they could pick someone from the Senate. Same way with Senate leaders, they could pick someone from the House. So I almost have a problem with that, because it doesn't say you can't pick them. It doesn't say that you can't pick. Like, the Senate majority leader is of the same party of the House majority leader. If they just pick each other,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, they're
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I
and
mean,
that,
I think at least this is kind of the way I'm thinking about this right now, is I wonder if we just go with the idea of a tribunal,
yeah,
and then we figure out
the ins and
like,
outs.
yeah, the ins and outs later.
Okay,
Because I like the idea of it. Hey, yeah,
I do too.
and yeah, I would. And I think this is another one of those things we need to get socialized, and we need to get better about, the Reddit posts, and and getting people involved, and talking about it, because I feel like this is one of those things that should be crowdsourced, and like maybe talking in legal Reddits and stuff like that, where people that have experience with legal processes of what would be the most ironclad sort of situation to try and take partisanship out of it, out of the process, and make it as ungameable as possible.
Yeah, with proper representation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have it for that part. The next part is a majority is quorum. Majority of each house shall constitute a quorum to do business.
Hmm.
I don't I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah. And then, the authorized to compel the attendance. I know they've done that
Yeah,
in the past, where they've had the sergeant at arms uh, pull people in, or people will flee
yeah,
Washington D.C. in certain situations, like one party or the other. And
yeah.
man,
Walk out.
I
The parties walk out and they
yeah,
say we're not going to vote on this or whatever.
yeah, yeah. What? Yeah. So there's not enough quorum. There's not enough for a quorum.
Yeah,
I guess I like the idea or the ability to do that, but in order to in order to create some sort of strike situation, which is basically what they're doing. You're uh, for me, like in past situations, it's always been something that's strictly partisan. Pick whatever issue or thing that's going on in the news and in the narrative, and they walk out as a show of, hey, we're not going to abide by this, and it's, I don't know. I'm thinking, like, it's almost not self-serving, but it's like, is this in the is something like that in the best interest of the people, and where you're basically refusing to do your job that you've been elected to do because things aren't going your way. It's almost like I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to go home.
I mean, they recently did that in Texas. That was a big thing when the representatives left because of the vote on the gerrymandering, and they didn't to be forced to come to vote on gerrymandering. That's the only thing that they had left, was to not allow a quorum to be held.
And that's the thing, right? Like if you believe that staunchly, and you're looking at the people that you represent and how they're going to be affected by it, and you say, I absolutely, I stand by my morals and I absolutely refuse to vote on this or to see this thing through and see that thing passed.
Yeah,
But
well, because the thing about it is no matter what they did, because of the way that it's set up, they needed them there to vote, even if they all voted no, it was still going to pass. But they needed them there to have a quorum because they didn't have enough people for the quorum, so they needed to have some of them there so that they could vote, even though it didn't matter. It was going to pass no matter what.
yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
how do you resolve that from a perspective of, hey,
Well, I'm looking
like,
at
if
it
you
like,
have a
are
partisan
you
enough.
doing this from a moral perspective, or are you doing it as some sort of political grandstanding tactic?
It's going on right
And
now.
I don't think you can have one without the other.
It's
Again, it always circles back around to, like, people are going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to game the rule inside of the system. But it's like, so do you take away their ability to do that? But then you also take away the ability for somebody to stand on their
so
moral.
it's happening right now in the federal government with the government shutdown.
Right. Yeah.
It's the same thing. They're, hey, we are not going to negotiate. You either fall in line and do what we say, or it's your fault. Again, this goes back to what we were talking about. So, and what are the options? Like so you have all of these people that are affected by this, because you have people that are standing up for what they don't want, certain things. How do you prevent, or what's the recourse? I mean, the recourse at this point is one side is eventually going to give in. There's no other option. Either they negotiate, or one side is going to give in, period. Like that's the only resolution to this.
Yeah. Well, and when you look at it from the perspective of, people aren't going to get VA benefits. They're not going to get, there's military people that are working for free. And,
All
at some
federal
point,
employees, yeah.
well, but I believe most federal employees were sent home.
Yes,
And
most of them are.
they're not actually working for free.
Some are air traffic controllers. Some of the quote unquote essentials.
Yeah,
they're
the
working
first
and they ain't
responders.
getting nothing.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure we abolished slavery in this country, a couple of years back, but
Maybe.
Conversation for another day. But
yeah, when we get to the amendments.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough, man. Like when you put it in that perspective.
I mean, there's no way to force people, like when you look at that from that perspective, because they need to pass it with a certain. So you're trying to force somebody to vote on something that they don't want to vote on, and the option is, well, you're hurting your constituents.
Yeah.
My constituents are going to be screwed no matter what. If I don't vote on this or I vote on it, we're going to be screwed either way. Except so I'm choosing not to vote on this because I don't believe that, this is quote unquote morally correct or whatever. And you have that on both sides, I guess. Right now, that both sides are refusing to negotiate. Like, well,
Yeah.
actually, I believe that the Democrats have laid out what they want. There are certain concessions that they want about, the tax cuts and the Medicare or Medicaid cuts or whatever. And you have one side that refuses to negotiate and says, nope, we'll just let the government fall apart until you decide to come crawling back and say, please open it back up.
Yeah.
What's the recourse there?
Yeah. And I think,
how do you wait a second? I just want to, how
yeah,
do
no.
you, like, if we take this to a court of law, you have 12 jurors and you have to have a unanimous decision or else you have a hung jury, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you can't get everybody to agree, then what's the recourse that you have after that? How do you hold these people in contempt? And I know that they have it in other governments to where if you don't have an agreement, basically it goes, they put elections back out to that Congress is removed and it goes back up for election. Like, if y'all can't agree on it, it forces an election.
Yeah.
I don't remember what country, but but if you
I don't know. I like that idea, man. That's really interesting. In the sense that, yeah, like if this is what y'all are going to do and how y'all are going to behave, like and then a stipulation that you cannot hold elected federal office after that. Like, so if where there's some sort of consequence for acting like fucking children.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to see. Let's see, 20
Because if we're going based off the idea that you guys are supposed to be the best of us, that and you cannot come to a compromise and you cannot come to some sort of agreement, and you can't figure this out, like, collectively as a whole, you all get punished, and that there is consequences to your behavior.
So you have it in Canada. Essentially, if everybody rejects the budget, it leads to a vote of no confidence, and that triggers a no election. Does the same thing
and
in
you cannot
Australia,
be part of that election.
New Zealand. Well, see, now I don't know if I like that, because it goes bad both ways. But if you're holding the country hostage from that point, I mean, because you don't have all bad people, like you have people that are standing up for their morals and standing up for those things. So I don't know if you prevent people from going for an office of re-election. I don't know how you do it. I get what you're saying, because hey, if y'all can't agree, but the thing is if you have a group of people that are saying we're not going to negotiate.
Yeah, if it's 30 bad apples in the barrel of 100, I understand what you're saying, but I guess the way that I'm thinking about this is that it's not and that 30 people can hold the country hostage, and maybe that's the thing that we need to start thinking about it from that perspective, is should 30 people be able to hold the country hostage, and what threshold do we set, what level do we set that at, right? And then, because then if it becomes 60 or 70, like, and I'll just use percentages, 60% of Congress or 70% of Congress that is holding the entire country hostage, or 55%, whatever it ends up being, because we're running in a bipartisan system.
But the problem is who's holding hostage? Like, you're going to have an argument of who's the one that's actually causing the shutdown, because you have that now. You have one side saying that the other side's doing it, and you have one side saying, hey, we want to negotiate, but they're not coming to the table. So who do you? how do you say who's not coming to the table
Yeah.
by doing that? So
And my initial reaction to that is still like you hold everyone responsible, and
yeah,
and you think about the consequence of that, like and what it means today, and you talk about and we talk about self interest and how people act and will act in their own self interest. And so, if the idea is that I'm going to lose my seat in office, and in the current state of things, is I'm going to lose my cash cow, I'm going to lose my I'm to a certain extent I'm going to lose my ability to generate the revenue that I've been receiving up to this point. I think that's enough of a deterrent to where people are going to be like, okay, there's no way that we can let this happen. That enough people are going to look at that and be like, yeah, I'm not losing my seat in Congress over this issue. And so, yeah, we are going to sit down and we are going to pretend to be adults for this amount of time and figure this out.
my only concern is that going to push people? Which way is that going to push people? Because if you take a look at the climate right now, you have one group that wants to give massive tax cuts to billionaires, wants to, gut, social services, wants to do away with a lot of things. And you have one group that's standing up and saying, no, that's not right. We don't want to do that to our constituents. And if you have it to where, hey, you guys are going to lose your whatever, does that mean that you're going to have people that are going to give up their morals because they want to keep their money? So they're going to, adhere to, whoever the people are in power and say, yes, sir, we'll claim fealty because, there's an easy way to buy them out of it. Like, I know it's one of those things, like you said, giving up the cash
Yeah,
cow, but that also allows the ability to be bought.
yeah. But I, in my head, and maybe I'm thinking wrong about this, it gives equal amount of leverage to both sides because it puts them on a level negotiating field, right? Where it's like, hey, if you don't do this, and again, like I could be oversimplifying, and and thinking about it in the wrong way, but it's like, hey, like if we don't come to the table, we're going to lose our seats, and these people over here are going to be like, well, we're going to lose our seats too. Then it becomes a situation where it's like, okay, well, we have to compromise. So, okay, yeah, we want to cut Social Security, we want to cut Medicaid, like, well, like, oh, okay. Let's talk about that. What does that look like? Because you're not cutting all of Medicaid, or you're not doing this, and we want to give this to billionaires. I mean, in my mind, it at least creates it creates a lever of influence to where both sides can negotiate, um,
Yeah.
and equally. Because if you want to stand over here, if you want to stand on your
Is it
morals,
is it equal? Is it equal though? Because you have people that are elected, and this is one of the reasons why Congress continues to get paid even during a shutdown, is because you have the ability of the wealthy that can withstand a shutdown for however
yeah,
long,
right.
and you have people that don't have the ability to afford with whatever. If it's a way to hold something over those people to get them to come across is money. So saying that you're going to, somebody that's newly in, oh well, I can get in the good graces of this group by coming over, whatever, no matter if I'm, stand on my morals or not, I'm at least going to get to keep my job for the next 2 to 4 years, or however long it may be. So I'm not going to stand with, on this side. I can go over to the dark side. I can be that person of, hey, pay me money and I'll make things happen. So, and you find that a lot with people that, people that didn't come from anything, didn't have stuff growing, when they start to get that taste of, oh wow, wait a second, I can have all this. Yeah, what do you need me to do?
Well, and not
Uh,
only that, like they take those people in that situation a lot of times. if they think that they're going to have it taken away from them, they do
They'll do
some
like
unspeakable things.
yes.
Um,
So how do you reconcile
yeah.
that? How do you and that's why I was
You turn
saying
it.
as far as kicking off a new election and then saying, well, anybody that was sitting can't run again. Oh man, that's a tough one. Like I
Do
don't
you,
know that is
do you
appropriate or
put a
not.
limit on it then? Like, I mean, do you say that this can't happen while you're in
Well,
office more
we're
than 2 or 3 times?
well
I mean,
we're already putting term limits, right?
yeah,
Like we're already instilling term limits, so so people know that they're not. This isn't a lifetime job. They know after however many years that they're going to be done. And during the next election, are you gonna have people that are going to stand up? From a moral perspective.
yeah,
This is a tough one. It's a tough one
yeah.
to say. How do you make
Do you turn it over to the court of public opinion then at that point? Like, I mean, uh, and say like, or take people back to the primaries if you want to talk about the party system, where you can decide if the people can decide if you're going to be on the ballot or not. But I mean, I feel like that's just an extra step in the process, because if people know and understand like what you did inside of that government shutdown, which may or may not be public record. I don't know. So maybe that's something. Then, like, because you have all these closed door meetings and you have all these different things that are happening. One second, I apologize. Sorry about that.
it's all good.
The uh, where it's like where
You
people can make it, or where people can make informed decisions based
what
on
they've
what
seen.
happened in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly what the way to do that would be. Is that you would have to record those closed door meetings, but then people can go to lunch or go to dinner, or go off site and have have these meetings elsewhere. I'm just
Well, the
like,
funny thing is we're actually going to be talking about that in 2 paragraphs about journaling of published from except for parts that may be under that require secrecy. So that's something we're
yeah,
going to get to. But I mean, I don't know that you can. I don't know that you can say you can't run again. I think from that perspective, people being able to run if they are representing their people well, and they're
yeah,
saying no, we're not going to stand for this, and it represents what the people want. Why would they not be able to run again? I guess the bigger thing is it's going to, like right now you have one side saying that the other side is causing the shutdown.
hmm,
However you want to do it. Like you can look at whatever you want to look at, or whatever cause, you got one side saying it's because of, healthcare for illegal immigrants. And then you have, the other side saying, well, they're not coming to the table at all. They're not negotiating. They're essentially stonewalling everything. So,
yeah. Well,
you take people out to vote, and it's going to be, well, this person is standing up for what I believe in, so I'm going to vote for them again because they're, holding the line, or making sure that this doesn't happen. And then you have to look at it from, the other. You're going to have it. You're going to have both sides say, well, they're doing what I want them to do, and then how do you not get back into the same place? So
yeah,
so by preventing those people from running again, is not necessarily good,
yeah.
and then also letting them run again is not necessarily good. So
Well, the thing that keeps rolling around in my head is something that I learned very on in my military career, and that's that stupid should hurt. Like, and so if you're going to act a fool, and if like a government body of the supposed best of us, it is going to behave this way. And I'm not saying like, and put it in the current perspective where you have a bunch of people that are like, oh yeah, we're going to give tax cuts to billionaires. We're going to, we're going to reduce Medicaid coverage, and we're going to put, for example, I don't know if this is what they're doing because I don't pay attention to it. We're going to change the Social Security payout. You can't get it until you're 69 or 71 or whatever the number ends up being. And I'm like on its face, and the idea of it itself, like as to why you're doing that, or like why you think that's going to be better, like that argument can at least be made. I don't know if I'm going to like any of those arguments, but and then negotiate from there. I mean, that's the whole point of Congress. That's the whole point of elected officials. And I guess if those people think that they're doing right by their constituents, or the majority of them, and that's what they want, then then go for it and figure it out. And if you can't, and even if the other side feels like they're taking a moral stance, like by not negotiating at all, then uh, then I don't know. To me, that's all of their problem. And I know you said that in this particular case, the other side came back and was like and was willing to negotiate and make some concessions and stuff like that. And then the other side said, "Oh no, 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 we're not doing that." And I don't. Maybe there's something to be put in there as far as like a forced negotiation or forced mediation. Um, uh, I'm thinking of it in terms of court, like family court and other domestic situations where they force people into a negotiation and a mediation before a judge makes a decision.
Yeah,
And
and if that doesn't work out, then they go to the
yeah,
judge and
and
somebody
and
makes the call.
maybe it's something like that. I don't know, where it goes to uh, another tribe. No, that I don't like that idea.
No, because you're
Not for
going, you're having the same thing. You're end up in the same way. I like the idea. I like the idea that. Um, Hold on a second. How do I do? I don't know why it's Sorry, I gotta remove this quote here. But for some reason, chat is not working for me here. I'm gonna have to get that figured out, get that removed. But anyways, my my concern is who's quote unquote who's the baddie, and who makes that decision. And you're going to have people who are going to be fighting against each other as far as
Well, that's a matter of perspective too, because I bet you that there's probably at least 30-40% of this country that you could poll right now and say that Republicans are doing the right thing. So it's
exactly.
like, how do you even quantify or qualify that?
And that's my problem that I'm that I kind of have is who's to say what's right. And then what you're going to have is you're going to have people that are going to say, well, we're right, they're doing this, they're doing that. And how do you say which one is who's correct? And that's the problem that I'm. How do you solve for that? And I don't know that you can solve for misinformation or or echo chambers or stuff of that nature. I don't know that it's possible to do that.
Well, and I think the point I'm trying to make is in that situation, I don't think anyone is correct. By causing the shutdown. Like, and even if you are standing on your morals, like, I don't think shutting down the government, especially when you talk about how big the federal government is and the different things that they administer, for the good of this country. I don't think that there's I can't go in and look at that and say, like, one of you is right, one of you is wrong. To me, it's like you're all wrong.
Yeah.
And and I guess that's why I'm more leaning towards the consequence idea. I like throw them in jail. Like, I mean, I'm just throwing shit. I'm throwing stuff against the wall. Like,
Yeah.
but put them in jail until they're willing to negotiate. I or some sort of house arrest. I don't know. Take all their communication devices away. Like,
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. The
I
only
know, but I mean, but that goes back to the wealth thing, and, like, and then wealthy people just start funneling money into their accounts, and then it doesn't matter anyways. That have their own, personal interest in that situation. You got billionaires that are gonna save hundreds of millions of dollars on these tax cuts, and
yeah.
they'll kick down for that. If they're gonna say, what's $50,000 a day if I, if I make $500 million extra next year.
Yeah. And that's the hard part. That is, like, you're talking about trying to punish someone, punish these people for not, pulling their heads out of certain places. But the question is how do you effectively do that across the board to where, because this is where it comes from the perspective of you have, pick whichever one you want from the perspective of whoever's in power. How do you prevent the other side from? You know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
any sense? Like,
How do you
and
prevent the
that's
other side from what?
how do you prevent the other side from taking advantage of that? Like it, and that's where you're going to run into, oh, well, if they did that, well, then that means that I can do this, or if they did this, then that means that I can do that. If
Yeah.
that makes any
No, it
sense.
does. Like, and we see that in government all the time. If Texas is going to gerrymander, so is California. You know,
Exactly.
it's like, and again, we keep circling back around to the same idea, is that, at least in my head, one, this is supposed to be the best out of our society, and they're supposed to be better than this kind of behavior. And
Exactly.
two, yeah, and so we shouldn't have to put rules in place to stop them from doing this. They should be able to do it themselves, and figure it out.
You would think.
And yeah, and so we, it's so interesting, because as we walk through all of this, I'm wondering if they were having the exact same conversations 250 years ago. I would have loved to have been a fly on that wall, like, where they're looking at this, and going into this, I was like, oh man, there's so much we can change. There's things that we can make better, and more, I just think, like, I don't know if there really is, like, where they were ascribing to an ideal, like, and the ideal of civic virtue, and it's like, how do you inject that back into our society, or can you even? Because we've tried for 250 years, and we have so many problems inside of it, and I guess, and now I'm asking myself the question, is like, okay, so is this enough? Like, is this good enough? And these atrocities and all these different things that have happened, where people have abused power, is that the cost of doing business? But then again, like the whole time I've been thinking about this is like I like everything going on in the news, and I'm not paying that much attention to it. But like the way I hear people talking, and the way that my perspective is like, I wonder if you went back to Germany in the 1920s and the 1930s, and you talk to people, and you know the things that were going on, and the things that were being said, and the way that power was being centralized, and they're, you know, hey, you know what, this is fine. It's not that bad. It's not that big a deal. Like, you know, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was the same thing, and so it's like, and that this is our moment, you know, of where there's some kind of tipping point, and I'm not even talking about the current administration, because let's say it flips over. Let's say it flips over to the Democrats in 3 years, and they're looking back at the last 4 years, and they're like, well, they did it, so why can't I institute my policy the same way they did?
That's what I'm talking
and then
about.
and then it's just a slippery slope.
Oh God, don't say that slippery slope BS. I don't believe that. I think it's a very over. That
Sure.
term is terrible.
Well, I've only said it once, you know, in five podcasts.
No,
So,
no. I get it, but the thing, like you're saying, and I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing a lot of the things you're seeing of not giving power up again.
Yeah.
I think that's why certain things are taking place, is because the idea is that they don't ever give up power again. And if you're looking at it from that perspective, what is to stop somebody else from doing that? Like how do you put quote unquote guardrails in place to make sure that no matter how big the truck is, or how big the whatever, that it doesn't go off the road, that it stays on the road? How do you make sure that you keep things moving the way you want to? And
and
you know,
and my thought process, I keep going back to, is you find better drivers. We find better ways to make better drivers. And
you're not wrong, but the problem is how do you weed out the drivers that are not going to do what you want to do? And then when you start putting those types of regulations, or those types of laws, or filtering, whatever, you know, you're disenfranchising part of the people. You're not, you know, it's not free and open. Like there's, you know, I mean, if you look back at historically, most of the people that have been in charge have been lawmakers, have been, you know, highly educated people that have gone to law school, that have gone to, you know, some sort of higher education, that understands, you know, whether it's from a government perspective or from a law perspective, they respect those things that have been put in place, right? They respect the quote unquote traditions that have been, hey, we don't do this because it's not right. It's not in the best interest of everyone. It's, you know, a power grab. It's a whatever. It's whatever it is. So we don't do that. We have to adhere to, you know, the not just the words that are there, but the spirit, right? We have to adhere to the civic spirit that the Constitution was created in, that our government was created in. Yeah, you have, you know, different pieces that, you know, have to be, you know, looked at from a judicial standpoint of, okay, how do we interpret this? You know,
there's room to play in all of that.
Yeah, of course. But you let the courts do that, and then whatever the court decides, you uphold it. Like you like, that is a decision that is made, so then you uphold that. You know, when someone is put in power that doesn't adhere to that, particular tradition or spirit of the law or the government that's been put in there, they're free to do whatever the hell they want. Because again,
Yeah.
all that law is a social contract. It's a piece
Yeah.
of paper that says you can or cannot do this. And the only teeth behind it is when someone enforces it. If there's nobody
Right.
to enforce it, or if there's nobody that's willing to go and enforce it, it falls on the people to enforce. It falls on us, like from that perspective, because we're the ones that created that quote unquote social contract. We're going to give you this power if you represent and you essentially do what's best for us. When you're no longer doing what's best for us, or no longer adhering to, the spirit of what we've put in place, it's our job to tell you, well, guess what? You can't do that no more.
Yeah.
Like, because the people have all of the power. A lot of people say, oh, well, military this, military that, or
Yeah, but the military are the people too.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the
And
big thing.
especially
That's
for
what they
me
don't
having a
understand.
military background, I can understand that a little bit better. We
Yeah,
still live in those communities. We still,
correct.
yeah, we're
You're
still a part of that.
you're still the people, and that is that is a big part of it. Is when the people say,
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
it's about organization. It's the whole reason we have unions. It's the whole reason that you have a lot of the protests that are going. It's the organization of people against something. If
yeah,
the reason the way that unions were created is people stopped working. People said, no, we're not going to put up with this. We're going to organize, and usually it was organized by a group of people or by someone to lead them and say, no, we're not doing this no more. This is not good for us. We want better.
yeah,
And then they said, we're not going to do it, because if the people say no, you have no power. But the reason that you stay in power is by subjugating the people and telling them that they have no power, and having them in fight. Don't allow them to organize, prevent them from, coordinating and creating a union or creating a whatever, because the people is where all the power is. I mean,
right.
and that's what it says in the Declaration of Independence.
So maybe then the only course of action is to take vacate at every senatorial and congressional seat and put it back to the people, and then they get to decide one way or the other if they want this person to continue to be in to continue to represent them. And, and that's the guardrail, and there's a lot. I think there's a lot of stuff that can happen inside of that, where one of the quote unquote bad apples is going to get back into the barrel. But I think if you do it quickly enough, because people's attention spans are small, but if you do it quickly enough, that they can look at it in the light of, okay, hey, here's what this person did in this situation that caused us to have this recount, and probably get some pretty decent results from it. At least that's the thought in my mind. Like I would say within 15 to 30 days, like you have to organize a recount that has to be held within like the next 30.
If you're talking
You're on mute.
about killing the current and putting everybody up for election, I mean that's a big thing. I mean it.
Yeah.
You need to do it with. There needs to be a time frame on which a government shutdown after a certain period of time. If a negotiation, if a consensus, or if a resolution cannot be reached within a certain number of days, that it automatically triggers the states to perform a re-election of whichever house it is stuck in.
Yeah.
Like whatever body is not, and I think right now it's the House, whatever body is not able to come to a resolution, then that represent those representatives are, a reelection is held, within 30 days of the end period. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Agreed. Um, yeah. And I suppose that is enough of a consequence, because then you have to go back and explain to your constituents like why you did what you did. And I would think that the entire election campaign centers around that single issue, to a certain extent. I mean, I know with media and everything else that's out there, you could possibly make it about something else, but I think that would be in the forefront of people's minds.
see, I guess the question would be, from that perspective, because if you're talking about everybody, like the House of Representatives, it's every 2 years. But I think the Senate staggered, not the House, right?
Yeah.
Because the House
The,
is just 2 years period.
yeah, everybody gets reelected every 2 years.
Um, is it two? Well, every
I
second
think
year, yeah, and the elector shall have qualifications. Okay.
I think we might have changed it,
Yeah,
but
our thing was 4 year terms, 2 term
yeah.
limit. Yeah, that's what we were.
Yeah.
And
So
and there was another thing as far as switching, like that I had, like I wanted to talk about, but when we revisit these, we'll look at it.
fair enough.
But um, let's see. But okay, so now we're talking. If we're getting into that, what's the time frame? Shut down for how long?
Oh, so yeah, I was actually thinking about that. I mean, maybe there's something along the lines where the government, like, if you guys can't come to an agreement in 30 days, it triggers an election, and at that 30 days, the government is just like, you turn the faucet back on.
So, the only time I'm aware of, as far as when it comes to a government shutdown, is whenever a budget bill is not passed, right?
I believe that's the case. Yes. I
So
but I could.
I don't think the government shuts down over anything else, because
Yeah.
that it just goes indefinitely. But approval of the budget is the only thing that would cause a government shutdown.
Well, and that's only in the House anyways, right? Because budget bills all have to start in the House. Well, they still have to be approved by Congress, or I
Well,
mean, the
no,
Senate.
yeah, they still have to be approved by the Senate, but what they're doing right now, I don't know exactly how this is all happening, but and I should probably do more research on what it is. But when you're taking because it went through the House, it passed the House, went to the Senate, passed the Senate, but now for some reason it's back in the House, and the House is they need approval for something, and I can't remember what it is, but essentially the one side saying, we're not going to let this go through unless you change these things. Like, you need
Yeah,
to
so
negotiate.
it's when Congress fails to pass a funding legislation that the president can sign into law before existing appropriations expire. Um,
Correct.
and then so it says each year Congress must pass 12 appropriations bills to fund different parts of the federal government.
Well,
And
yeah,
then it
I
says
get
if
that.
none or only some of those bills passed by the start of the new fiscal year, October 1, the affected agencies lose their legal authority to spend money. So I think, like, if it goes longer than 30 days, you turn it back on, and then maybe you revert to the previous appropriations bill.
That's what I was saying. For a period of, for the
Uh,
next whatever period
yeah,
it is.
until Congress can be reseated, you go by the previous appropriations bill. And I mean, I think that almost takes a lot of teeth out of it as well. Out of the whole situation, it kind of de-escalates it because it's like, hey man, you're gonna lose your seat,
The government's going to open back up.
and the government's gonna open back up anyway. So yeah, what do you get out of this? And if it's a moral stance, you get a lot out of it. Like, and maybe you lose your seat, maybe you get reelected, maybe you don't. But if you're on the side of, oh well, I want to keep my, I want to keep what's mine, and I want to keep my revenue stream, you'll do anything to uh, to stop that from happening. And and in that sense, whether it's willing to negotiate or that almost yeah, whether it's willing to negotiate or continue with the current appropriations. Um, I think that yeah, I like that. I'm sure somebody can poke holes in it, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it prevents like if the partisan thing from taking over. Like, but I was concerned with what exactly is it? How is it that the House now is able to stop something going through, but they weren't earlier? To get that bill passed through, but it does. It is one of those things that, hey, well, if the other ones, hey, we're just going to keep our previous bill. So what would happen if this particular bill made it through, and then the next, the next election, one side's like, no, we'll just keep the last one. Screw you. Like, but then you do go through the problem of, okay, well, hopefully we'll be able to get reelected, even though we're not. That's
Yeah.
what it all.
Yeah,
I mean, it
you
all
can
comes down
keep
to the
it. You
people.
can, yeah, you
Yeah.
can keep the last one, and then you have to go up for reelection.
Yeah, so
And
that's
if you,
I don't know, like you said, it's stupid should hurt. I don't know if that hurts or not. I guess is the
I, I would think that people would get fed up enough about election about how going to elections, and especially if you talk in the sense of that that benefits are tied to voting, or benefit
I mean
you
that would
cannot
be
receive.
if we do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, people are gonna be pissed.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's one of the big things when we're talking about, the what we're doing as a whole. We're making a lot of little changes in a bunch of different places. There's some big changes, but I think that they all have to work kind of together. And I'm not going to
Yeah,
use the S word, but they kind of help other things work properly.
yeah.
Um,
One lever pulls on another.
yeah, yeah.
One pushes the other one in another direction as well. Yeah.
Okay, so so I would say shutdown happens over 30 days. A reelection of said body would trigger, but and then until body of Congress is reseated and a new budget approved, be budget approved, the previous bill takes effect for the next year. Is it every 2 years they
I
do
would
the
I would
budget?
say I would say until that body of Congress is reseated, and then they get 30 days to vote on the new appropriate, and the appropriations bill is the first one on the docket. And then you get 30 days from that time.
I don't know if we can do that. I don't
Hmm.
know that you can, because saying the 30 days, I think it's going to, from that perspective, I'm just trying to think, because if you say
Well,
that the previous
and appropriations
budget,
bills are for a year anyway, so maybe maybe
yeah,
that's it. Just keep it for the year.
but it is the first thing on the, like, the first thing that they have to do is approve the, like, that has to
Yeah,
be done.
yeah.
But,
And then does the new appropriations bill take effect for the rest of the year, or do you wait till
that's
October
what I'm
1?
wondering. I wonder if you make it 6 months, but then what happens is because I think no, I guess it doesn't happen. Yeah, it happens the same time every year as far as the shutdown, right?
October 1. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
always October 1.
yeah. So if you were talking from that perspective, you're like, if you start putting it in different times of the year, like if you say, oh well, it's got to be done within 6 months.
Yeah, I think you just call it for the year, and then they vote on it come October again the next year. I think that simplifies things.
No, I don't think that they vote on it. I think it's the only thing that can be done through Congress. I think if a new budget for the next year isn't, because you can't just make them put it off for a year.
Yeah,
Like that doesn't make any sense at all. No,
yeah.
they
You
should
make
have to have a resolution within a certain period of time and have
Yeah.
the budget for the next year passed before they can vote on anything else. Because that's the whole point, is you kicked them out because they couldn't they couldn't agree on a budget.
Yeah, yeah. And so the first item of business is the appropriations budget. Yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
What did you call it? First item of business. That's our business as budget or appropriations. This budget must be passed within, you think 120 days enough, or is that too much? You think 90 days? 3
That's
months?
4 months. Yeah, I think 3 months is enough.
3 months?
Yeah.
I think for next fiscal year. And obviously we're going to have to look at that. Takes effect. Okay, we can look at that. So I mean, that's one way to prevent, shutdown, but that doesn't. All right, so I think that from that perspective, that helps with the shutdown stuff. But a majority of each shall constitute quorum to do business. I think that's fine. This next content, but a smaller number may a day to day may be authorized to compel attendance of absent members in such manner. Like this is an interesting.
Man, the more and more I think about that one, I think you just leave it. That's me personally.
I'm thinking the same. I mean, it because I think it stays the same in all of them. Yeah, and all the other ones, it all stays the same. Let's see. Each house may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior, and with a concurrence of 2/3 expel a member. Now, I think the expulsion of a member has only happened a few times in history.
What was it? I think it happened just recently. What was that guy's name that basically lied through his entire campaign? I can't.
Well, it was in 2002. James Trafficant of Ohio was expelled from the House following his conviction of bribery 5 years earlier. And then Bob Packwood of Oregon resigned following a recommendation of the Ethics Committee. He be expelled for sexual harassment and related misconduct. But he resigned. He wasn't expelled.
I could have
And the
swore there
thing,
was a Hispanic dude that they got elected and they expelled him like recently within the last year or two, maybe the last 3 years.
I'm not
It
sure.
might have been the 2022 election. I'm not sure. Anyways, doesn't really matter.
The well, the key thing here is they only have the ability to expel, and they can exercise the power of expulsion without waiting for a criminal conviction. They can do it for whatever reason, but it doesn't mean that they are tried for anything or are guilty or whatever. It's
Right.
just they can no longer represent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's that you don't meet the qualifications of, the level of standard to be a part of this congressional body.
correct. Each house may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior. This is where okay, what exactly is
That can get
punishment
really, yeah.
and what
And
is
that can get really
disorderly
hard,
behavior?
when you censure people and other
Yeah,
stuff like that.
I mean, what do you do when people scream out during a presidential address?
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
do when
you kill them,
you did?
of course. Yeah.
I thought that was only the babies. Sorry,
Oh,
you got me confused now. I don't
my
know.
bad.
No, but it's one of those things of what is disorderly behavior, what is punishment. I think I think that for now that kind of stays the same. 2/3 to expel the member. I mean, you could go into more details, but again, I don't want to. I don't want to sit here and define a lot of things because then you again unintended consequences.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's. But yeah, okay. So the progressive leaves that. So does the libertarian. Oh, the conservative one goes in, adds a few things here. So, one, they say they determine the rules of its proceedings provided that any changes to the rules take effect 3 years after adoption. I don't mind that. So you can't have somebody that changes the rules to get what they want passed hey, let's we have the ability to change this rule because we have majority, so let's change this rule and then we can get what we want.
Yeah.
I think that given time, I don't know if it's 3 years or whatever it is, but I do like the way that they limit being able to change the rules so fast. I like that, so that at least there's time. But then is 3 years the right time frame?
I think 3 years is long enough.
So, yeah, I think that is good. Okay, and then so here's the other thing that the conservatives say. It's funny that the conservatives are adding more rules.
Right.
It's not something that you would think. You would think that the progressive would be adding rules. Okay, so this is, unless repealed in the interim. Yeah, we got to make sure we put that down here. Okay, so the next part of that may punish its members for disorderly behavior, and I like what they added here. It's very funny, or unwarranted absence.
Like, what if they don't have a doctor's note?
it's one of those things that we were just talking about. If they say, "Hey, we ain't coming in,"
Yeah.
but and I'm guessing that's not disorderly behavior. That's not considered disorderly behavior, not showing up.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about perspective, right? It's all in the eye of the beholder.
I don't know that I necessarily want to put unwarranted absence in there. I think that's done on purpose. But I don't know that it fixes, like, oh well, you have to be here because if you're not here, we're going to punish you. I don't know that that's because that's going to. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like if people
Yeah,
walk
no,
out
that
and
makes sense
say
to me.
putting that in there, because I'm guessing
Uh,
that's not disorderly behavior.
the absences is not disorderly behavior.
Well, that's what I'm wondering because they had to
Well,
add the unwarranted absence to it.
hmm. And maybe that was their fix for the walkout thing.
Yeah, but if the only thing that a party has is, I mean, you have to vote, negotiate. If we put in the whole thing, if shut down over 30 days, you trigger a reelection. You know, punishing unwarranted absence. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have to we'll have to get some feedback on that. All right. And then I believe, yeah, concurrence of 2/3, expel a member. Yep, which is fine. And then Congress may, by law, so this is a new one. Congress may, by law, determine the rules of proceeding for both houses. I don't, because that gives the ability of the Senate. What I don't know.
Yeah.
It gives the ability of Congress to rule over both groups of people, to create
Yeah.
laws that, like, so that the Senate can create laws for the House that the House has no say in.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. Because if you have a majority party in one but not in the other, you can't let the majority party in one dictate what the other group does. That takes away the representation of those people, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, if you want to follow that line of logic, though, like even the idea of expelling a member takes something away from the people's elected official, right?
Well, it depends on if that person, if they expel a member, then that kicks off another election, right?
Right, but it was the will of the people that decided that that person was going to be elected to that office, and so then if a group, the group or the congressional body decides that they don't meet whatever criteria constitutes, what was it, disorderly behavior or whatever it ends up being, then you
No,
have
no, they
just
can do it for whatever reason. If you have
yeah, yeah,
2/3 of the body, then then being able to expel it, you should be able to expel a member. I mean,
but then at
it,
the end of the day, you've just like the other, the majority of the represented officials have just negated the will of the people as far as elected officials go. You get what I'm saying?
oh no, I know what you're saying,
I'm not and I'm
but,
sort of playing devil's advocate, and
but
I should probably just stop. But
no, I understand what you mean. It's a matter of, okay, well, you
you
need
do
to
need to
give the
have some
ability
method.
of them to do that. Is 2/3 not enough?
No,
Like,
I
I
think
mean, you're
2/3 is
talking
enough.
2/3. Okay, so you're talking what is that? You need to have 67 people in the Senate,
Yeah.
and you need to
Yeah.
have some crazy amount, like
Or well, like 66.6 people.
67. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 67 in the Senate, and then the House, whatever 2/3 is of 435, which yeah, I don't even think that many people normally even show up to vote. So
Yeah.
I think I think you're okay on the 2/3.
Yeah. I think that's fine.
I mean, unless you wanted to go with 4/5.
No, I think 2/3 is good.
Two
I
thirds
like
is
I like
good.
that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And let's see the next part. Let's see. Okay, so this is where it gets a little. And I know that we're running over on time here now.
Yep.
Each house shall keep a journal of its proceedings, and from time to time publish the same, excepting such parts that may, in their judgment, require secrecy. So that was that. And the yeas and nays of members of either house on any question shall, at the desire of 1/5 of those present, be entered on the journal. So I'm pretty. I don't know that they've ever not put the yeas and nays, made them public. They actually read them out, and that's part of that whole democratic process of recording. Who the yeas and who the nays are. I don't know of any time that they have not done that.
Okay.
Now, I mean, not saying you could, because the whole thing is 1/5. Like,
Yeah.
if 1/5 of the people, which
And
is
you
not
you hope
much.
there's yeah. Yeah, you hope there's enough people with morality that would be like, no, no, no. There's no reason to keep this a secret. We need to we need to let people know how we voted and why.
Exactly. And I think I don't know that you're ever not going to, because 1/5. I mean, what is that? 20 people in the Senate.
Yep.
20 people in the Senate, and I don't
Um,
even know how to divide
like less than
435.
50.
Yeah. So I don't think you're ever going to get away
Like
from doing that. And I
43.5.
and I'm my
No,
thought
no,
is
20. Anyways, doesn't matter.
I don't think, and I think that's why they do it no matter what, because I don't think that anybody would ever have the votes to be able to say we're not going to record this.
97 is the vote count in the House.
1/5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's about right. 435, 90. Yeah, okay.
Times two.
So the only question of this is, may in their judgment require secrecy. What qualifies as in their judgment, and to where they're not keeping a journal of its proceedings, and from time to time to publish. I mean, we have pretty much live streaming. I don't
Yeah.
know that there has been much from the like the time that they unplug the cameras and don't let people see. I don't know that. I think that's only whenever they're jurying for impeachment or something like that, is the only time it's ever been done.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's fine. We just keep that in place.
yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so I
Yeah,
think
and I
that's fine.
and I think the fourth one holds up. I guess my last question is: Are there special cases in in anything around membership rules, journals, and adjournment that seem to be popping up in not necessarily day to day, but often enough to where
It
we would need
requires.
rights. Yeah, it requires some kind of other guardrail. And I'm not, and off the top of my head, I can't think of anything.
So, well, here's the thing. With the last part, House and Senate leaders typically work out a joint or concurrent resolution providing for adjournment, but some partisan gamesmanship may prevent it. For example, in 2007, Harry Reid announced that the Senate would hold pro forma sessions every 3 days so that President George W. Bush could not make recess appointments. In 2012, the Republican-led House prevented the Senate from adjourning so that President Obama could not make such appointments as well. And the Supreme Court recently reminded the president that it is the prerogative of Congress to determine when it's in recess. So again, this is one of those things where they're gaming the system on purpose, using it to their advantage. So I think that is, I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing, but obviously they're using it to their advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I think you have to look at presidential appointments separately, like and try to create some rules or some clarification around that as far as trying to hold those up or hem those up through partisanship. That's my thought, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to get really, and they do that's why they have this one, what may not adjourn for more than 3 days. I mean, the whole point of that is because they were worried that between the houses that one would essentially roadblock the other, to where, one could adjourn and say, hey, we're adjourned for whatever, so you're screwed until this time, and they're not going to work together. So I don't see a problem with it right now, but I want to review what's in the other constitutions, mainly the conservative one, because to be honest with you, the other ones really didn't add much to this. They're almost exactly the same. Yeah. So if we look at the conservative one, they added a few things. We already covered most of them, but unless otherwise specified in this Constitution, each House shall approve of resolutions or bills by majority vote of those present. The rules of each House shall provide an effectual means for preventing any filibuster or other dilatory tactic from precluding a vote. Oh my goodness. Let's see, where was I? From precluding a vote on any resolution or bill for more than 2 weeks after any member is called for the question, provided that each senator shall have one opportunity to speak for an unlimited time on any bill or other matter.
So I was asking ChatGPT to come up with some historical examples of what we're not thinking about here, and it brought up the filibuster, which is covered under each house may determine the rules of its proceedings. And I guess the filibuster is under that. Like,
Well,
they
yeah,
decide
because
what types of bills require the 60 the vote block, the 60 senator vote.
well, the thing about the filibuster is you cannot prevent a member of whichever house to speak for an unlimited amount of time. Like, as long as they're speaking about the bill, they should be
Yeah.
able to speak for as long as they want. And that's the filibuster. And then they
Right.
can give that off to someone else, and then each member is only allowed to speak. Like, you can't come back up. I don't believe. I believe it is, and that's part of the House rules, so that everybody has the ability to voice their opinion. And you can't take that away. And that is
Yeah.
what this one, unless otherwise specified, that the House shall approve of resolutions or bills by majority vote of those present. The rules of each House shall provide an effectual means for preventing any filibuster or other dilatory tactic from precluding a vote on any resolution or bill for more than 2 weeks after any member has called for the question, provided that each senator shall have one opportunity to speak for an unlimited time on any bill or other matter. So, yeah, essentially they're saying you have to have a vote within 2 weeks if somebody calls for a vote on something, and you can't do the filibuster to prevent it for weeks, months on end. It has to be voted on within 2 weeks, provided that each senator shall have one opportunity to speak for an unlimited time on any bill or other matter. So you have 435 people. They all need to have the chance to be able to speak. You can't stop that from happening, but it has to be voted on within 2 weeks, essentially.
Yeah. Well, you can stop it from happening if you have 60 votes.
Sure.
You can call for a cloture.
Yes. Yeah, and that has been used. That was actually one of the things that they mentioned. Whoop. Where did they put it? It was in here somewhere. But they were talking about that, about how the rules of its play. Right here it is. Senate Rule 22 is a high-profile example of the power of legislative rulemaking. That rule establishes a 3/5 threshold rather than simple majority to invoke cloture and thereby limit debate. In recent years, each party has accused the other of abusing the right to extend debate. Leaders of both parties threatened to change Rule 22 unilaterally to insulate certain questions from the supermajority requirement of cloture. So, I mean,
Yeah. There's another example in here where in 2013 and 2017, the Senate reinterpreted its own rules by majority vote. They basically said, well, majority vote doesn't mean what you think it means. And then it eliminated the filibuster for most nominations.
Yeah. So, and that goes along the lines of that other thing about if you change the rules, it doesn't take effect for 3 years.
Oh, yeah. So we fixed that one. Nailed it.
Well, I mean, yeah, fixed. Right. But yeah, so this is in the conservative one. This is a way to try to get around the filibuster.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then,
and I think the rules changed that one, because they talk about changing the filibuster for one issue or another that's going on at that time.
correct.
And then so if you make it so the rule doesn't change for 3 years, in 3 years you're not going to care what you're voting on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're still filibustering after 3 years,
Right.
you got problems. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna.
I like the rules idea a lot more now. It wasn't clicking for me, and the 3 year cooling off period.
Yeah, the
Yeah, that solves a lot of the problems.
so here's another one. Remember the whole thing of unwarranted absence. So in here it says, except for good cause shown, every member shall be present during the sittings of the House or the Senate respectively, and shall vote for or against each question unless the member has direct or pecuniary interest in the determination of such question.
Yeah. Basically, that to me sounds like the idea of a judge recusing himself or herself. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
So
have a personal interest or a personal stake in what's being voted on.
yeah. So I mean, I like this because right now, a majority of people don't even show up to vote on stuff for the
Yeah.
most part. So,
And that forces them to go to work.
well, I mean, yes, or, but I mean, this is also bad for the perspective of campaigning, because if you're out campaigning, you're not in session. So
Yeah. Well, and I think, I I think there needs to be you know, I believe we both agree that there needs to be campaign issues need to be addressed and talked about. You know, because and especially if you're the incumbent and you can't, you know, and you can't campaign, and then the other person can, and is out there, you know, kissing babies and shaking hands and doing all that stuff, like it puts you at a disadvantage. So yeah, it's something that needs to be thought about and discussed
Um, so we'll discuss attendance rules.
around campaigning, and maybe because we're increasing the term limits on the House, we you do some kind of staggered thing, like you still hold an election every 2 years, and then and then so like half the, you know, only half the House is campaigning at any given time. And then you know, you allow for 3 months of absences, or you know, I'm just picking an arbitrary number at this point, but something like that.
Well, I'm trying to think. If you're supposed to represent your people, you gotta get out there and talk to them. You gotta hold town
Yeah.
halls. You gotta
Well,
do
maybe
stuff
we
like
use
that.
technology where you can use Zoom or WebEx or something else uh, to hold sessions of Congress. Although you know, the idea of 435 people on a Zoom meeting, that's kind of a lot. You know, especially yeah.
But
But
there should
I
be
agree.
some there. Look, if you're sick, you shouldn't be going. This goes back to the whole go to work sick and get everybody else sick.
Yeah,
If you're sick, you should be able to attend in a
yeah,
remote format and
yeah,
still be able to
yeah,
represent
and
your
with
constituents.
yeah, and with the money that we have available and the you know, and the technology that we have at our fingertips, there's no reason that you couldn't set up an incredibly robust um, remote system for those bodies of Congress to where they were just as included in the proceedings as somebody who was physically there.
Yeah, and then you can just have hackers create an AI video um, of a particular representative, and
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's a legit concern. I mean, we've seen it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, with the deep fakes and
Oh
other stuff
yeah,
like that. Obviously, you've got to have security surrounding it. Um, Not just anybody in the Zoom meeting. You know, maybe you make it so it's you know, this is getting into the weeds, but like, you know, you got to log into a virtual desktop that's on an internal network, and then the
look,
WebEx or the Zoom or whatever is hosted locally.
we could sit here and go.
Yeah.
We could go
Oh
down that
yeah,
rabbit
we can
hole
do
of
this all
what's
day.
exactly. I mean, we've done it all day,
Yeah.
literally before. Like, what is the most secure way to actually have somebody
Yeah.
to make sure that that's that person that's actually on that it's not somebody that can get around, whatever. Like
Yeah.
we've been there. Okay,
You know, and
so
people can be socially engineered. They can be bought. They, you know, I mean, say, you know, it's the same idea.
well, I mean,
Like,
the funny thing is the easiest way to do that would be to just pay the person. Like,
yeah,
so, I mean, seriously,
which is
that's
what most people are doing right now, anyway. So, I mean, like,
exactly. So there's
have
no
we
change.
really created a new security risk?
Okay, okay, we have neither house. Okay, this is an interesting thing that they added. The terms of senators and representatives shall end noon the third day of January, and the terms of their successors then begin. The Congress shall assemble at least once every year, and its such meetings shall begin at noon the third day of January, unless they shall by law appoint a different day. That's literally taking the what's that from?
Okay, fine.
Is it the 17th?
Yeah, the
What
17th
is it?
Amendment that made
17th.
it. The senators were directly elected.
Yeah. Well, no. 20th Amendment. Sorry, 20th. Congress shall start on the third day. They put the 20th Amendment into Section 5 rather than have it be said in Section 4. That's all they did.
Okay, fair enough.
Which, I mean, I don't have a problem with. I mean, because this has all of the rules, for the way that it should be operated. I mean, whether or not that falls under the, falls under the election versus the rules and hows of the powers and duties of Congress versus elections. I mean, tomato.
Yeah.
But I think that that's everything. I think that we've effectively gone through a majority of Section 5.
Nailed it.
Only 26 minutes over where we should have been. So, ain't that cool? Ain't that fun?
Yeah.
So,
Exciting. We made it through one more section.
One more section. How fun is that? And I know that we. I got to get this information of what we've decided on this stuff put up into Reddit so people can have conversations on it, and I will get that going. But I think at this point, I think we're about the time to wrap up, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Feels that way to me. Yeah.
So, Josh, I'd like to thank you for another wonderful session here at Unratified.
No. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. There it is.
I think, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. We do this, and I'm like, are we just masochists ourselves? Do we just do we just hate ourselves for doing something like this?
To a certain extent, yeah, I think so. I always tell myself, or the thing I come back to is like, even if we don't change anything, even if none of this goes anywhere, man. Like I think it's worth the endeavor. These are the conversations that people should be having. We should be striving to make things better for as many people as possible, even if it doesn't. The endeavor itself is worth the effort.
I agree. It's very well put. The endeavor is worth the effort. I like it.
All right. Yeah. Well, everybody, thanks for listening in. If you've got any ideas or comments, or want to tell us how terrible we are, we're on Reddit at unratified ACR, and stay safe out there and make good choices.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next week. Be good to each other. Make good choices.
Yeah.